So good evening. Welcome to Grand Blanc Township Board of Trustees meeting for Tuesday, December 12th. We could all rise for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Robertson, would you call the roll, please?
I would be happy to call the roll, Mr. Supervisor. Trustee Hugo is absent. Trustee Fike?
Here.
Trustee Raridan?
Here.
Trustee White?
Here.
Treasurer Kilmer?
Here.
Myself, of course, I'm here. Supervisor Bennett?
Yes.
6 members present, a quorum.
Okay, and now I will entertain a motion for an approval of the agenda. Motion by Dr. Raridan, supported by Mr. White.
Motion by Raridan, supported by Fike on the agenda. Okay. Excuse me. Trustee Raridan?
Yes.
Trustee White?
Yes.
Trustee Fike?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer?
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett?
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you. And now we will open the microphone for any public comments. So we have comment cards over here, I think, but if not, feel free to come forward. We just ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. If you can provide your name and address, it'd be helpful for the record.
Fill out a card.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Joyner. I live at 6454 Kings Point Road in Grand Blanc Township. I'm also a board member of the Kings Point Neighborhood Association and chairman of the Special Assessment District Project, which is SAD for short. It's a good thing. It's not a sad thing, but it's
Right.
The first phase of the SAD project, the storm sewer expansion that we have been working on for the sump pump water collection, has been completed. There are some minor elements that will be addressed in the spring before we begin the milling and the repaving whenever it begins in earnest. I come before the township to express my thanks and the Neighborhood Association Board's thanks for the assistance and the guidance of the Grand Blanc Township Board and the Grand Blanc Township Department of Public Works through the process of developing a plan, a budget, petitions, and creation of the SAD. I also want to express our appreciation for the work done by the Department of Public Works on the sump pump collector system in concert with the Genesee County Road Commission. The acquisition of a Michigan land grant to cover the costs for this part of the project is greatly appreciated and deserves recognition. Much work went into the engineering, planning, and execution of both the sump pump system and the SAD repaving to make this a reality. Recognition of the 20% contribution, which was 10% township, 10% county, towards the cost of the SAD, also deserves recognition. We look forward to continuing to work with them in the spring when we begin repaving the roads. Despite having the right-of-ways dug up and some cross-cutting of roads, the various crews performed their work very efficiently. Safety being foremost, and were kind and personable with the residents when they had any questions or concerns. They made adjustments for traffic and kept the roads passable while they worked. They made an extra effort at making off areas for the trick-or-treaters on Halloween, marking off areas for trick-or-treaters on Halloween, which was very nice of them. Replacing concrete curbs and damaged driveways was done within 5 days, which was rather quick and very efficient. Final patch paving and some driveway repair and restoration of lawns was handled in the same courteous manner. I would have these companies back in a heartbeat. I finally want to thank my fellow board members of the Kings Point Neighborhood Association for their input, their hard work, and support of this undertaking. Thank you very much.
Very nice. Very well done. That's great news because I know my phone hasn't been ringing with regard to that project, so it must be going smooth. And I have heard from other townships at meetings where they haven't gone that smoothly. So I'm very pleased to hear. I'm very well aware of a large subdivision somewhere else in the county that all the things you mentioned actually probably would have been mentioned that they didn't go well. So that's very good news. Okay, any other public comments this evening? Mr. Anderson? Good evening.
Larry Anderson, 6545 Kings Point Road, Grand Blanc. First of all, as also a member of the Kings Point Homeowners Association, I want to say ditto to everything he said. That did go really, really well. I think most of you know, if not all of you know, that I sat on the Township Board for 8 years. Prior to that, for about 4 years, I attended the public meetings frequently so I could learn the job I hope to have one day. At that time, they were discussing Heritage Park, that PUD development. I think Mr. Jeff Zittel was the supervisor at that time. And I expressed concern to him that at multiple developments such as that with Walmart locations in them, semi-trucks tend to park overnight and it kind of looks like a truck stop. Mr. Zittel says, nope, we've discussed that, that's not going to happen. I came to a meeting where the developer pitched his case to the Township Board. I spoke to the developer personally. Nope, that's not going to happen. We've already addressed it. I can assure you that's not going to happen. We're going to monitor that. And I think if I recall right, there were 2 trustees that voted against that PUD because of the same concerns for overnight truck parking. As you all can tell, the developer never followed through on his commitment to the board and the commitment to the community that overnight truck parking would not be an issue, because it is, and in fact, it's gotten much worse. At one point in time, shortly after the development went in, I did see there were small signs posted in the islands up there that said no overnight truck parking. Those signs are gone now. They've been gone for a couple of years, so hopefully we can get that reposted. And I hope you guys take that into consideration when you vote on the passing of this new ordinance today. Okay? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. It is something we're going to address, so this evening, including new signage. So, any other public comments? Okay, seeing no further public comment, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. And at this time, we have some special recognitions that we're going to make. And to start out, are we having Fire Chief Burdett? Okay, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Not many people know this, but next year is the 100th year anniversary of the fire service here in Grand Blanc. And in commemorating that, we put together a group of some individuals who volunteered to say, well, we'll do some things for the centennial event. So I'm going to turn this over to Fire Marshal Keller right now. He was one of the individuals who's part of it. It's Firefighter Frank Getz and also Office Administrator Megan Delano helped out in doing this. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris to talk about what he's got going on.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So as Chief mentioned, next year's a really big year for us as a fire service here in Grand Blanc Township. So we wanted to make sure we had some events that we could celebrate with the community. So as Chief mentioned, a group of us have been working on that, and we've planned 2 major events next year, with the first one being Firefighter for a Day 5K, which is May 4th, which is also International Firefighter Day. The unique thing about this 5K is it's going to be a community event, lots of things for the whole family to do. Food trucks, blow up bounce houses, plus the 5K, fire trucks on display. But we also have teamed up with CS Mott Children's Hospital, and they have a program that's injury prevention for children. That program is funded through grants and donations from community members. The profits that we raise from this 5K is going to go to that, to help support that. They do a lot here in the community. One of the big things they do is car seats, which is crucial that we have, and we can't thank them enough. Additional things are another event we're going to do, which we have more details to come, is in October. We're going to have a community celebration again. That's still in the planning stages, so more details will come out, and that can be found on our Facebook page. In addition to the 2 events, we have some other stuff that we're working on, which is some swag for community members to buy to help celebrate the event. And that includes challenge coins, T-shirts, and one of the things we've been working on is a calendar. The calendar is a 16-page calendar, and it's really unique because it has pictures of the fire service here in Grand Blanc from way back in the day to current members of today, past members. It also has events that we're having in the community, like National Night Outs listed in there, in addition to specific fire safety tips that go out throughout the year. So at this time, we'd like to present the board members with a token of our appreciation by giving you guys one of the calendars. And again, thank you for your continued support. So.
My wife and daughter were asking if you had a firefighter's calendar.
That's the
I told them we do. I do. Thank you.
I don't know if I do. I've seen it, but I don't have one of my own, so.
So again, we appreciate you guys' support, and we look forward to celebrating next year with everybody. So.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Deputy Chief Miracle. He's going to introduce the new firefighters that we're going to be presenting to you tonight to have pinned.
This year we went through and we hired quite a few new guys, one being another full-time person. And right now I'm going to introduce Frank Getz. Frank is originally started as a part-time. He was here for 3 years, and in October this year became one of the full-time firefighters. So come up. Along with Frank, we also hired part-time personnel, Justin Crump, John Dunban, JT, Braden Moore, and John Tapp, and Luke Larson, which is unable to make it tonight. Just up front, that's fine. At this time, did the person that plans on pinning onto the firefighters, please come forward. And then I'll turn it over to
Clerk Robertson.
Clerk Robertson.
Right there. They're ready for you, Clerk.
Yeah, well, I was stepping forward, Mr. Supervisor. I'll administer the oath and then we'll do the pinning. Is that right?
Yes.
All right, gentlemen, if you would raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of firefighter in and for the Township of Grand Blanc, County of Genesee, and State of Michigan, according to the best of my ability. Congratulations, everyone.
I'm just razzing you. We have the first aid kit ready.
Awesome. Seeing you. Yep.
Congrats. Thank you, sir. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Whoop!
Congratulations.
Don't lose the.
Welcome. Welcome.
Congratulations.
Well, congratulations, young man.
Congratulations. Thank you. Dave,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you.
thank you. Congratulations.
Congrats.
Welcome. Thank you. Congratulations. Well, that's fabulous. Well, congratulations to all of you, and congratulations to our fire department for recruiting fine individuals to serve our township. I know right now is a difficult time to find police officers and firefighters, so we appreciate the effort that both our fire department and police department are making in that regard. So, okay, so we will move on to our public hearing this evening. What's that? I'm going to make them stay through it. I'm just kidding. You're right. You know what? Let's take a couple minutes if some of you want to gather in the entry area, take photos, what have you. I know that not everybody's going to appreciate sitting through the rest of our agenda. So thank you, Chief, for reminding me of that.
For sure. It's interesting.
Chief Rennie, when can we expect 6 at one time?
You could expect a few here coming up real quick. After the first one.
Okay. Okay, at this time, we will, the board will hold a public hearing to consider adopting the proposed Green Knolls assessment rule. But first, before we do that, Mr. Laddie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight is the night that we are going to consider the approval of the special assessment roll for Green Knolls. And this is an interesting project because it is kind of small by monetary standards, in fact, and also physically. It is the resurfacing of the east 200 feet of, and I'm scrolling through trying to find the name of the street. But,
Green Meadows.
Green Meadows.
No.
And so we had some conversation last time about the scope of the project, and really, and what it's going to do again is it'll be 200 feet in from Saginaw Street, so they'll dovetail it into Saginaw Street. The cost is only $32,000, which is good news, and that can be paid over a 5-year period of time if residents choose to do that. There will be another option for them to pay in full if they want to avoid interest charges. And this project's, I think, going to be financed, and Superintendent Lehman can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the township's going to finance that project. So it should be pretty seamless if somebody does have the desire to pay off the amount in full and not incur any expenses or interest expenses. And so, unless there are any questions, we'll let the public.
Board members have any questions or concerns? Okay. Well, we will open public hearing for anybody that would like to speak to this project. And so, anybody on either side of the room want to speak to this subject? Don't everybody come up at once here now. Okay. Going once, going twice. Okay, seeing no comments, we will bring it back to the board here.
I'll make a motion.
I think we have it on our agenda here in a little bit to vote on this resolution. So I appreciate that, Mr. Fike. We'll take that up in just a few moments, and I'll count on you for the motion on that. Anything else to add, Mr. Laddie, Mr. Lemata?
No, sir.
So,
Okay,
closing at 6:20.
correct. Thank you, Clerk Robertson. Moving on to approval of the consent agenda. Somebody care to make that motion? Motion by Mr. Fike, support by Mr. White.
Consent agenda. Motion by Fike, supported by White. Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan. Yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to old business, our first discussion is regarding our strategic plan update with regard to IT upgrades. We have Mr. Nate Lucevelt, our IT director. So, good evening, Mr. Lucevelt.
Good evening. So I'm here to provide a update on the strategic plan for IT upgrades. I'll try to be brief with it, as I know there's a lot going on. So recently, we had finished up with the Fire Station 2 upgrades and installed 4 wireless access points around to increase the wireless capability in the new areas. We also installed an additional phone line back by the bunk rooms, so the firefighters will have easy access to a phone when they're sleeping. This year, we have replaced over 20 desktops and laptops. Our goal every year is to do at least 15, and so we've succeeded that. We made significant progress, but are still working on migrating to the new file server. There's just one more thing left over to do that we're working with AM Data, and it's related to our document management software that needs to be migrated off of that server. So it's a little bit more complex than just moving files. At this point, I do think that it probably will complete towards the beginning of next year and not the end of this year where we thought it was going to be. And I also finished building a informational and bill pay kiosk that I did bring in for anybody who wants to play with it, right over there. The idea behind the kiosk was to provide easy access to information and bridge the gap for some of our residents who may not have a computer or internet connection at home, as well as making election information easier to access. So some of the stuff you're going to see on the kiosk is election information. There are things on there where you can check if you're registered to vote, where your polling place is, see who is on the ballot. You can view senior center information and some of the amenities that they provide, like the member activities and social services. There is a Parks and Rec menu where you can enroll in one of the many park programs, as well as book reservations for things like pavilions and softball and baseball fields and the banquet hall or banquet room. You can do property searches, pay your water and sewer bills, sign up for auto bill pay. And the last couple things, you can submit a water and sewer account name change form and access and submit permit requests. So if anybody wants to play with it, feel free after the meeting. But that's it.
So I think the kiosk, may be a little bit foreign right now, but I think given some time, I believe, and there's municipalities not too far away, larger municipalities that, for example, individuals can pay their water bill while they're at the Kroger store or Meijer, what have you. In a kiosk, you can already get your tabs renewed with a kiosk or at the grocery store at Meijer now. So why not our own kiosk for doing that, whether it's at the library or who knows what, but being able to pay your water bill, whatever else you want to do.
Yeah, and to implement that would just be one extra piece of equipment that we would put in there for cellular access, and that's it.
So there could be the ability to run a credit card through there, swipe it eventually down the road.
Essentially. So we did build our own. It is web-based, and it just essentially goes to existing pages on our website. So as far as,
Right.
there's not like an API that we can access to implement something like that, so it potentially.
Right, down the road it'll come. How are we doing with readiness for BSNA switching over to the online version?
We are still on the waiting list. We should know shortly by the end of the year. We're supposed to know when our install date is. So we're waiting to hear back on that still.
So the BSNA is the backbone of most of our departments here.
Yep.
And we're switching to a version that is online as opposed to one that's housed on our server. And
Yep.
that's kind of it in short, but it's a huge shift because everything runs off of it.
Right.
And there's quite a backlog of municipalities that are switching over. And
Yeah, I think originally it was about 14 months of a wait list for sure.
well, the IT, when you don't hear about IT, things are going great, right? And I don't ever hear of any problems. And I think we're doing good. But Mr. Lehman, anything to add?
No, I think you're right that we're doing very well in our IT department, and we've gone leaps and bounds since Nathan has come to work for us, and he continues to push us to go to the next greatest thing. This kiosk, I think, is unique for us because the cool thing is Nathan built this. This isn't, something that we had to go and purchase proprietary and put together. Nathan really has been working on this as a side project. The fact that he's got it and it's a working model, you guys can check it out after. But it just shows his expertise and his knowledge base and what he brings to us here at the township.
Yeah, very impressive. You guys are doing phenomenal work.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? Mr. Roosevelt, any questions? Yeah, Mr. Fike?
Where are you going to put it right off the bat?
So there's a picture of the board out there. We're gonna put it right under that.
There you go. Right underneath the board picture.
Okay. Good answer, Nate.
Let's make sure it works so that
Okay. Yeah, we'll make sure it works really well.
I don't want them throwing darts.
Phone numbers will be under there for each board member. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Lucevelt. Thank you for your great work and your department as well. Okay, with that, moving on, the board will review the compensation for board members and commission members per the board compensation review policy. So just real brief, one of the things we did when we first were elected and one of our first few meetings, we said, hey, you know what? There isn't any policy with regard to how board compensation is set. We need to put a policy in place so that each board going forward has to discuss this issue for the next term. So what we want to make sure is that we don't have the can kicked down the road like previously where it hadn't been discussed for 15 years. It's a tough subject to discuss. Nobody wants to discuss their own pay or responsibilities and what have you, but we made it a policy as a board that we were going to discuss this 1 year, in the year prior to the election, and before anybody really has signed up to run again, or anybody to really just run, period. So with that, when we first were seated as a board, we also brought in a facilitator to talk about what we saw. I mean, we have legal responsibilities under state statute, and nobody's looking at changing what those are, but much of the day-to-day work has changed. So for an example, I'll use, and the first thing I want to say right out of the blocks here for our board and for our residents, what have you, we're looking at this purely as what these positions constitute. And we're not looking at personalities. We're not looking at who's serving in these positions right now. And we're not making any judgment calls. We're just saying what this job may entail or not entail these days. The position of supervisor, years ago, probably was a difficult discussion that they had that they were going to take, and many of the day-to-day operational activities were going to be the responsibility of a full-time superintendent. And when that discussion occurred, the board voted that, hey, with the next term, we are going to have a person that's title of superintendent that's going to take on a lot of the responsibilities of the supervisor. And I think it was a wise decision, and I think we're benefiting from having a great superintendent at this time. We talked at the last meeting about doing something similar with the treasurer and the clerk's office, and that we want to have somebody on staff for those positions that takes care of a lot of the day-to-day. Our concern is that if we elect whoever in the future, they may not have the individual to serve as their deputy that could perform all the things that are required. Let's face it, Grand Blanc Township is one of the largest townships in the state. I know we're in the top 15, if not the largest of the top 10. We're more like a city than we are township. For reference, cities, the treasurer and the clerk are not elected, they're appointed. And so you get people who actually are professionals in those fields. We have already done that with a lot of our workload in that, for example, well, we'll wait till we get to their positions, but we've already done that to some extent. What we did, though, after we were elected, we actually met with the facilitator and we outlined what we thought each of our board positions' responsibilities, besides what the state statute stated, what we felt we expected or what our expectations were of each board member. And I know we don't have Ms. Hugo here with us this evening. I think, it's been brought to my attention that perhaps we wait to make any decisions or vote on pay until everybody is able to be present. But I thought we could have some initial, continue the discussion so we aren't leaving it all for that meeting to discuss the actual dollar amount of the wages. But everybody has in their hand, at least the board here has the expectations. I printed out and gave you a copy, and we emailed them yesterday. But I would like to just take a look at each position and talk briefly about, what we said were the expectations, and is that realistic of what's actually happening? So with that, let's start with the trustees, and there's a whole list of things that we said that we expected, and I can say that I think we have, some of the best trustees I've served with, and you guys come to the meetings prepared, as we said that we wanted. You bring resident concerns to us. Any thoughts on the trustee expectations? Any comments?
We've tried not to micromanage.
Right, exactly. I think, part of the job is to know where that line is between operations and policy. And I think our board has done a fabulous job of making sure, Mr. Fike, that we actually stay on policy. I think putting together a strategic plan as a board early on was very helpful to keep our focus on where we're going, not how we're going to do it, and leaving the how we're going to do it to Mr. Limita and his department heads and staff. So I think that is a huge accomplishment of our trustees, that it's very tempting to get involved in the detail and start saying, hey, we want to have a say in how Mr. Limita is going to handle this thing. But I think we've developed trust with Mr. Limita and vice versa, so it makes his job a lot easier too, knowing that we're not behind his back trying to move chess pieces around. Yes.
One thing, and you might want to speak to it because
Sure.
you did before, is technically approved personnel decisions, because I know in previous boards that was a real sticky position, because the board would want to make the hiring and firing decisions. And as we brought out in that strategic planning, that's actually not the case. The only thing we do is vote for the position.
Right. Yep, so, voting for the position versus the personnel, or person that it's going to be. And that's only fair to Mr. Limita, in that if we're holding him responsible for the outcome, he needs to be able to choose who his players are going to be on his team. We can approve the position, we've approved a number of positions that we've created, what have you, and, so far, everything's, the hire, I don't know that we've had any bad hires, so to speak. So Mr. Limita's, following through on his end of it. So good point, Dr. Irvin. Anything else anybody wants to comment on with regard to the trustees? Mr. Limita? Any comments?
I think if you guys look at, it's interesting because when you guys put this together, it was March of 2021, relatively new board coming together. You'd been serving since prior November. So you take a look, and these were the expectations of what you had for yourselves at that time and for each other. And I think that you guys have done an amazing job. The cohesiveness of the board, you can disagree without being disagreeable, and the things that we've had, not to micromanage. We don't, I feel like you do a great job of directing myself and therefore through staff through motions, not individually. I couldn't be happier with, how you guys as trustees, individually and collectively, have performed as a board. It's been very gratifying for myself and for all of the staff in here to have the opportunity to work for you guys. And I appreciate what you said. The personnel decisions, obviously, as you know, state statute says the board is going to hire, the superintendent, police chief, fire chief, and your director of assessing. Those positions are statutorily required. The board makes those decisions unilaterally. I appreciate you allow me to be involved and to bring forward candidates, but those ones are statutorily. Everyone else, if you approve the position, then the hiring policy and statute has provided me the opportunity to move those positions forward. Obviously, you guys set the salaries and approve the contracts. I think it's worked very, very well, but I appreciate you bringing that up, Dr. Raridan.
So, Mr. Lemata, I'm just trying to think objectively here. Has there been any substantive changes in the role or the day-to-day duties of the trustees that we know of that we've changed over the past 4 years or what have you? I mean, we adjusted the pay, 3 years ago or what have you, but has there been any substantive changes to? I can't think of any off the top of my head, but.
No, and again, the officers of the board, the supervisor, the treasurer, the clerk, you guys all have statutory responsibilities that you're assigned. The trustees don't have statutory responsibilities, they have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers and to the board to make sure that the budget's been approved, that we stick to the budget as a planned expense. I mean, there's nothing legally that's changed, statutorily that's changed from the Office of Trustee. You guys are like a model of good governance, quite frankly.
Okay. I think we're going to have a presentation with regard to the clerk position this evening, right?
That is correct, Mr. Supervisor, under item 9B. Did you want me to, well, shall we wait to then?
Yeah.
Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, let's wait to have that till then, but
Do you want me to speak to the expectations under?
Sure.
Okay. Let me just say that I would remember obviously the process that we went through, and the items listed here, the bullet points are accurate with regard to obviously our managing of elections, our record keeping, basically maintaining accessibility to records, transparency. Obviously, we're delighted that the kiosk is another outreach in that effort. Obviously, my office is responsible for public notices and assisting the supervisor in meeting rules, okay? And responsibility for handling garbage complaints. Heaven knows that for the first 2.5 years of my tenure as clerk, it seemed like we were consumed with garbage issues, particularly at the times of COVID, when Emterra had the COVID outbreak among their truck drivers. That seemed to consume a large amount of our time. But I'm happy to report that we have significantly reduced the number of calls and number of issues by vigorously pursuing solutions on all of them, and it's been very, very encouraging.
that actually is a very big accomplishment because the volume of calls regarding garbage, it's very frustrating, and I think, you and your department have done a great job of answering people's concerns and, helping people understand what the rules are, reduces the volume of calls with each week that,
As I tell everyone when they call in, I never knew that there were so many rules associated with putting garbage and recycling and yard waste out on the curb until I got this job. And actually there's good reasons for all of them. And so I'm very pleased, very proud with my staff on that. Obviously, we handle the FOIA requests, and we've implemented new software in that area over the last few years, so that's a significant improvement as well. I've got quite a number of other things to mention with regard to the clerk's office. If you want me to wait, we'll wait until item 9B and make a presentation at that point. I'll preface it, and then we'll have Deputy Clerk Henry come up, if that's agreeable.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Want me to go next, or you want to go next, Mark?
I could go next.
Okay. Any thoughts on your position with regard to the daily operations or expectations?
Well, there are quite a few things that are just obvious. I mean, tax collection, property tax, sewer and water bills. I mean, these are accounting functions that we're responsible for. The reporting on investments, I think we have done that pretty faithfully. At least I haven't had a whole lot of questions on it. The on overdue personal property taxes, and this is an issue that we need some discussion and some things to work out. And for those of you who don't know, there's the differences between personal property taxes and regular taxes. The regular taxes are not really a problem for us that much because if they're not paid, they're turned over to the county and we're done at that point.
Right.
But personal property taxes is another issue. And we have, that's been kind of a thorn in our side. We, on the larger personal property taxes, we send out statements twice a year, and in some cases, we make phone calls. And this has produced good results. This works good for the larger tax bills. However, most of them are small and related to mobile homes. And there, the problem is the taxes are only on the sheds and decks, not the mobile homes themselves. So there's, the amounts are piddling. I mean, a lot of them are under $20. We've got 130 of these that are basically under $20. I think we have to make up, and I have talked to some other treasurer's departments, some of them, for instance, Mount Morris, they don't even try and collect them because you're chasing less than $20 bills. And to pay somebody to do that or whatever, I mean, not that we're not willing to do it, but the return isn't very good.
All right. Well, we can get a printout of what those are, right, Mr. Limita, of the personal property tax?
Sure.
So we can get a copy and we can look at them and see what kind of dollar amounts they are if we want to go after them, or, I don't know, Mr. Laddie, we write off a bunch of them occasionally, right?
We do. In fact, just recently, we filed, like, every year we file a complaint, and we essentially are obligated to clear off personal property taxes that are delinquent more than 5 years. And so we do that each year, and we have good response from the Treasurer's Department, and we have a case pending right now that's actually going to clear off our delinquent property taxes. The one thing, though, that we could pay some attention to, and depending on the dollar amounts, are the debts that are 3 years old or newer. And I have some ideas, depending on the dollar amounts that we'll see in that print off, that maybe there's a way to bundle them together, and then it's not quite a small claims action, but it works like a small claims case. But we need to sit down and decide what our dollar amount threshold is, because each of those cases costs a minimum of $50 to file and get service on. So I'd be happy to take a look at the list, and we'll see what we could bundle up and which way we want to go.
Yeah, and maybe it's not even a list of who all of them are. Maybe it's a report that tells us, how many do we have that are higher than, $5,000 or what have you? How many are between 5 and 3 and what have you? So, so we have an idea of what volume we're looking at, what dollar amount.
Sure.
And we can figure out what action we want to take. Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, there are 130 of them that are in that low category.
$20 range?
Yeah. And now there's another 60 or 70 that are above that and that are worth going after. But I think we need to define our targets and do what we can.
All right.
I have quite a few figures on that, but I'm not going to go into it right
Anything else on the day-to-day, Mark? I know, go ahead. Talk about. Because we have made quite a few substantial changes with regard to the treasurer's office over the last several years. I know you and I met, and one of the things we talked about was the investments. That, back previous term, we actually took the investments and hired PFM. And I know, previous treasurers spent a lot of time doing the investment in CDs, and we've taken that off the plate. And now basically we can get a report the drop of a hat, you know, on a computer or what have you, of where those are at.
The, and on that, the return on that has been a consistent for the last several years, and it's been right around 4%, you know, a touch up, touch down, but
Yep.
but that's, you know, for us to dedicate somebody full-time like we used to have it's not worth it.
Yeah, I mean, for the expertise that we're able to hire, I mean, they have dozens of professionals that are moving billions of dollars, you know, a week. Dr. Reardon?
Yeah, I have just a question on that, and Mark's doing a good job, so this isn't about that. But I think it was about 2013 that we took and had the investment firm come in. What, was that about right,
PFM?
Dennis?
It was 20,
14
or
15?
no, 2016 or 2017.
it's in the middle of the last term.
I would have been here, so it had to be 2016 then.
Okay,
Was it? I thought we moved
2016.
it last term. Okay.
But and maybe this would be through you to David. So the treasurer, he's responsible for the investments, but we assigned it to PFM. Now, if another person is elected treasurer, could that person come in and unilaterally say, I want to invest that money?
Well, you also created an investment policy that the board adopted. And as long as that remains in place, a board-adopted policy, then it's unlikely that someone would be able to do that.
Okay.
So the state statute for investment isn't necessarily that the treasurer has full control of that, right? I mean, it's basically that, you know, they oversee it, but the board can have a policy on how that's to be done, right? I mean, just like the state, you know, dictates what investments we can and can't put that money into.
Well, and I feel like that's part of the reason behind that is they expanded it, but they've got pretty serious guardrails on what you can and can't invest in. And that list has expanded throughout the years. And I think that's sort of just an acknowledgement of the sophistication that's required these days. And again, because you're policy-based, you're hitting the mark exactly right on setting up that policy and assisting current and incoming treasurers as well.
Right. So, you know, when we're looking at, and sometimes when I give this dollar amount, some people think we've got all the money in the world to spend on all of our, you know, things that we would love to have in our township. But we have to have a substantial money set aside even for just water and sewer. You know, we're looking at tens of millions of dollars that are being invested, and so we definitely need to have, you know, professionals doing that. And I think that's why the board set the policy, but it also took away a lot of the day-to-day activity of, you know, the treasurer position. And Mark even acknowledges that, you know, in the past, the treasurer was constantly looking at CDs and getting banks to give us their best offer and what have you, and all that at this time, you know, and I had a discussion at a meeting with several other municipalities, and they're all making that switch too. And so it's interesting that that's kind of an evolution with the treasury departments throughout this county. Yes, Mr.
To
Fike?
me, the investments are a big portion, or were, of the treasurer's job. Now, when this happened in 2017, did we lower the pay of the treasurer by a chunk, or is the treasurer's pay been the same all the way through?
When we did the research, when 2021, I think when we made the adjustments to the trustees' wages at that time, we were doing the research for all the positions. I don't know if we were ever able to uncover when that exact last resolution was set that set the treasurer's salary. So I just don't know. Before my time precedes me, but there hasn't been any changes to it. Like in 20, you know, more than 20 years, or?
I think you're right.
Yeah. I don't recall making any changes to pay for the treasurer. But like I said, I see other municipalities making that transition. I think, when I go to a meeting, I tell them that we have a, PFM that specializes in municipal investments. In the last couple of years, they were amazed there was such an organization out there. Since then, I know of probably 3 other townships in the county that have taken on PFM as their investment advisor or investment firm, and several more, including the 911 consortium that's looking at using them now. So it does remove, a lot of work from the treasurer. And so, so it's a consideration. We're
Talking about compensation here, right?
right.
Yeah.
So while we may not be making any decisions tonight on it, it's definitely, I think, a consideration for the future treasurer position.
Can I ask another
Yes.
question? Through
Sure.
you to Dave? Is there anything that we can do to firm it up, or are we in really good position? Because the next person coming in, or, 2 times from now, we want to make sure that we're on, firm ground.
I think you've done as much as you can do. It doesn't mean that future boards won't come in and change the policy, but I don't think there's any more you can do to try to cement that track.
Okay.
But Dennis, I'll defer to you if you.
All right. I agree. There's a reason that we've always had an investment policy, and it's not just a need, like to have, it's a need to have, it's a requirement. You have to have an investment policy because you have to specifically spell out where those investments, like a Chapter 20, who you can invest in, and it's very specific for municipalities on what we can invest money in. They protect us from ourselves, quite frankly, in case you had a rogue board or, whatever that wanted to go in a direction and invest money in just buying real estate or whatever. So it's very specific on what we're going to do. Then we took our investment policy and revised it even further so that we were very selective of what we're going to do, what credit ratings those banks had to have if we were going to invest in them. And that's a part of the treasurer's job, is to make sure that even that we hired PFM, and when we interviewed and selected PFM as the firm to move us forward, they made suggestions to our investment policy as well, to even more cement it and protect the board to make sure that we had a workable investment policy. So now the treasurer's responsibility, instead of following the investment policy and buying individual CDs and individual investments like was previously being handled, now the treasurer's statutory responsibility is to make sure that PFM follows the investment policy, and that's why you see the investment quarterly investment reports that come from the treasurer to the board. Those are, again, not just a good thing to do. It's mandated that we have those quarterly investment reports. The treasurer provides those to the board. He's certifying to the board as part of his statutory responsibility that he has reviewed the investments, that they're within policy, and that PFM's reporting has followed our investment policy. And so really that's where that statutory authority and responsibility lies with whoever's in that position.
And again, this is about the position. There's, whoever's going to be in these. The pay, I don't know, I gave everybody a copy of what the pay is for each position. I don't know, do we need to go through that at all?
You mean whether it should be adjusted?
Well, I mean, just out loud, or everybody has it, so I guess we're good.
In case people don't know at home.
Okay. Supervisor, 35,550 per year. Treasurer, 59,972 annually. Clerk, 59,972 annually. Trustees, 13,257 annually. Each of them receive $100 a month stipend. 3 officers, supervisor, treasurer, and clerk, are eligible for health care benefits. Retirement is available for, which is 15% of their pay, for treasurer and clerk. Okay, I'll go next for the supervisor position, unless anybody had anything else.
I would just like to add one thing for the retirement. This is more like a 401. It's not a defined benefit, so people don't get the impression.
No, it's just
Right.
defined contribution, 15%.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
for the public, I was.
Good point. keep the phone from ringing tomorrow. Yes, Treasurer Kilmer.
Yeah, last time we discussed these issues, I just want to point out that one of the things that Mr. Lemata did was come up with comparison
Right,
salary ranges
salary range, yep,
with other similar-sized townships, et cetera.
sure, yep.
So these didn't just come out of the air.
Right, yep. And I think we left the clerk and the treasurer positions alone, too. We didn't make any changes there. But- So, we also considered, for supervisor, those that had superintendents, too. As opposed to just taking supervisors across the board, and I would say the same probably would need to be looked at for the other positions if we've made substantial changes. With regard to the supervisor, we've got a whole list of responsibilities. I don't know if I need to read through them, but the board certainly has them. Running the meetings, helping with the agenda, going over the agenda, board communication, networking with other municipalities, being the face of the township, promote, speak for Grand Blanc Township, helping with business development, committee assignments, voting member of the board, providing leadership. I serve on about 10 or 11, 12 different boards. I don't know if you want me to list those: Genesee County Water and Waste Advisory Board, Vice Chair, Flint Area Narcotics Group, Vice Chair and former Treasurer, Carrignandi Water Authority, I chair that, Genesee County 911 Consortium, Executive Committee and former Treasurer, Grand Blanc Chamber of Commerce Board, Mass Transit Authority Board, Grand Blanc Township DDA Board, Point North Business District, we have that going. We ran our cleanup volunteer task force, I guess you want to call it, in beautification. Our county road commission, Roads and Bridges Advisory Board, I'm the chair for that. And the occasionally Board of Determinations for the Water and Waste Division, and then also various committees for each of those boards. So I stay very busy. Our staff may not see me here much, but I try to be here every day. But like today, I spent half the day at meetings outside of here on behalf of the township. So, are these the responsibilities? I'd say, each one of those things on the list has a whole list of sub-list below it. So, I would say that's pretty accurate. Mr. Fike?
Seems to me your responsibilities have grown since this was printed. You're doing more than this. And that as a result, you are, your pay should be representative of that. You're doing more.
I enjoy what I'm doing, and I knew what I was getting into. I appreciate the sentiment, Mr. Fike, and, it's not me to say, what, one thing, I didn't realize this, but I had a meeting and I didn't realize if somebody turns down their pay, they still have to pay the taxes on it as a board member.
Huh, interesting.
So if you turn down a portion of your pay, you're still paying the tax on it, apparently, from what I've learned. But anyways.
Well,
So
how
it's
can
kind
we
of-
approach this subject then?
Well, I know Dr. Reardon was asking that we wait, I know, until we have
Everybody?
full board, which I agree with, that we want everybody's input. And I think, we've talked about it a couple meetings, and I think we're making progress. It's a difficult subject, and I think some of it has to simmer a little bit or stew a little bit with each of us as to where we, because not everybody here on our board knows what all of our positions do, right? I mean, so I think,
Remember, this is for the next supervisor.
correct. This isn't necessarily for me.
We don't know that that'll be you.
That is a good point, Mr. Fike. I don't want to assume anything of
Right.
anybody here, and that's a very good point, so.
Well, could we at least discuss or put in notes what the cost of living is, or what our rank and file, so to speak, employees of Grand Blanc Township have received in raises? And just put that out there, put that on there, that, all right, here's what we're paying the average person in our township that works here. got this much raise. And did they get a cost of living?
Right. Well, the cost of living this year, I believe, is going to be 3.2 is what I'm seeing, right? Is that what you're seeing, Mr. Lehman? I don't know, what did most of our contracts here? I know it's a range because we.
It's hard to answer that question because it was different, and we had a lot of different
Right.
aspects of the negotiation, from closing a defined benefit pension plan to, and really, we're always trying to target, you guys have heard me say this many times, we want to be in that 90th percentile of competitive wages. The last time we ran yours, like Dr. Raridan mentioned, was 2021. We made adjustments to the supervisor and the trustees at that time. I haven't run a new one since that 2021. Be happy to do so. I don't know how quick we could get it together. If you're interested, we can take what we had and look at the municipalities and give them a call and try to update that list if that's what the board would like to see.
I think, my discussion with Mr. Fike also, I think part of the consideration he's asking for, correct me if I'm wrong, but to have it in policy that we consider, not that we're looking for it, but that previous or future boards would consider the CPI going into their term. And it may be every other year, it could be every year that the CPI is considered, so that, this last time, we went 20 years, and so it was, we had to make an adjustment, and it wasn't, the most tasteful thing to have to do.
If you wanted to have a general discussion, that's fine, but we should, for the vote, wait.
So let's
love
make
that.
a note
Yeah.
that we'll take a look at some options, and Ms. Hugo hopefully is able to join us, and maybe, I don't know about the end of this month, but probably beginning of the year, she'll be able to join us. So. Okay, and we're going to hear more about the clerk's responsibilities, which
We
I know
have-
have changed drastically. We're going to hear about those in just a moment.
Yes, we will. Item
Okay.
9A, Resolution 23-48 first.
Right. So anything else, anybody wants to, any closing comments on this subject before we move on? We'll plan on discussing it at the next meeting as well and see if anybody has any further clarity. Okay, moving on to new business. Item 9A, the board will consider Resolution 23-48, creating a tax roll for the Green Knoll Special Assessment District. Mr. Laddie?
Well, we had no comment at the public hearing, and so now the resolution is before you for consideration, and this will put a button or put a bow on the Green Knoll Special Assessment until the project begins.
Okay. Any thoughts, concerns from board members with regard to the Special Assessment District? No? Somebody care to make the motion? Mr. Fike makes the motion.
Motion by Fike.
Mr. White supports it.
Mr. White supports. Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
I will move your easel up here so everybody can see it.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I appreciate that. While Supervisor Bennett is moving the easel, I want to pass out some items to the board members. A couple of memos. Okay.
Memos?
Same one? No, no, that's fine. Did she just put up the same one?
David can share.
Yeah, we can share. Thank you.
All right. Also, if I could, Mr. Supervisor. Thank you. And I also have a second item.
Here, I can pass them out, so you can go ahead and start.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much. All right. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I've just passed out 2 items to you, and I want you to draw your attention to the contents of each. Let's begin with my memorandum that says, "Let's talk elections and more." It gives you some the history and gives you a sense of the enormity of what has taken place and how clerking has changed over the last few years. And when I say enormity, I mean enormity, because it is considerable, the changes that have taken place. As you can read here, since 5.5 years ago, when Deputy Clerk Lynn Henry began with us, and she's kind of the institutional memory, at least further back than I go, okay, the things have changed drastically. You'll remember that in November 2018, Proposal 18.3 passed, which included no reason absentee voting and same-day voter registration. That was significant changes in the law. In 2020, the presidential election year, we were hit with COVID, and no reason absentee voting started. So that was a significant, if you will, the COVID situation injected high-octane fuel into the changes in absentee voting because of what took place there. Grand Blanc Township, as it's demonstrated here, went from a permanent AV list of 3,859 to 15,500 in the blink of an eye, almost overnight. General election in November of 2022, Proposition 22-2 passed, which included 9-day early voting, drop box laws, permanent ballot lists, and much more. If you take a look here at the AV ballots issued in the comparison, and what we've done here is we've put them side by side, elections that are comparable in nature, and you see the changes in the AV ballots and the AV ballot issued in comparison here. In August of 2018, we had 2,555. In the August primary of 2022, by contrast, 5,841. In the November general election of 2018, 5,173. In November 2022, 9,317. The special election for police in 2019, 2,531. Special election this past November, just a month or so ago, 5,759. More than doubling of the number. We had a special countywide election May 2021. We had 5,368 absentee ballots issued. Presidential primary, the August primary of the presidential year, I want to be clear on that point. In 2020, 9,249 absentee ballots, and in 2020, 15,577. If you flip the page, you'll see, and because this is a two-page memo here, with the new permanent ballot list, with the changes that were part of the most recently passed proposal, currently we will have to automatically send 4,900 ballots for every election unless it is a school district only. It is still required to send the other 10,000 on the permanent AV list their applications. So once they're on the permanent ballot list, we send the ballots to them. And that is a significant change in terms of the workload and the processing involved. The clerk's office averages 350 additional hours per person to handle everything that is election related. With 9-day early voting added into the mix, that is going to add an additional 46 hours during any election, for a total of 138 additional hours for 2024. And let me say this is that as you know, my office was chosen to be part of a pilot project for 9-day early voting. And it's clear that at our level and at the state level, they're still feeling their way along in terms of understanding the magnitude of what is going to be involved in terms of hours and resources necessary to implement the new statute. And this speaks to the second memo, or the second item that I passed out, and I'll speak to that in just a moment. But let me also say that every time election law changes, it adds additional work to election staff, election administration, and election inspectors. Our clerk's office also handles, as I mentioned earlier, the FOIA requests, special assessment district notices to the newspapers and residents, handles all trash issues, recycling, yard waste, manages the qualified voter file of 32,000 registered voters, training of all election inspectors for recertification every 2 years. All right, every 2 years we have to go through the process of retraining our people. Specialized training for chairs and co-chairs, training for 9-day early voting, training for the receiving boards, preparing all election materials for all elections and PowerPoints, working on streamlining election material across Genesee County, which is what this, our office is doing. Now, with regard, this dovetails nicely into the second item which I gave you, which is, was prepared by the Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks, of which Lynn and I are a member, and they issued this to statewide. And it speaks to the importance of compensating election officials appropriately. It speaks to the argument for why we need to compensate officials properly. It speaks to the nature of the shift, which is a significant shift in the way elections are done with Proposal 22-2. The extension of the election period to include 9 days of early voting, enhancing voter participation, safeguarding integrity of elections, doing all of these things, and why it matters. Incentives for dedication. We want to keep our people dedicated and working. We want to attract qualified professionals. We want to make certain that we have the best people working for us, and we do, I may say, if I may say. And we've got to keep them in place because of the considerable, enormous complexity associated with the administration of an election, whether it be what's considered a smaller one in November, or one an entire year, like we're facing next year, where we have 3, perhaps even 4 elections, and we have as many as more than 300 days you can identify on the calendar where the statutory responsibility dictates certain actions by the clerk's office. So it's.
Can I interrupt you for just a moment?
Yes, I'm sorry.
You know, I think one of the evidence of things having changed is just the sheer amount of office space that we've had to reconfigure to accommodate all the requirements of the new voting laws. I appreciate, the document on the compensation. I don't know that we want to go through the whole thing.
Well, no, but I just want to draw your attention to the bullet points, and then I'll conclude. It supports professionalism and accountability, reducing turnover, upholding trust, effective management, public confidence. And the reason I mention this and the reason why it's relevant for our conversation is because the Secretary of State is going to be speaking to this issue in the very near future within, I believe, days. You may be seeing and hearing more about this issue at the state level. So I bring it up as part of the discussion here. But you asked for an update.
Your department is obviously, leaders in the state. Among these, as a policymaker at the state, you actually help, draft laws in the past on this, and Lynn's been, in the trenches, slugging it out with actually carrying out a lot of those things over the years. And we're blessed to have, both of you here because you work as a great team. And, but, for those that don't know, our department has, been helping the rest of the county, if not the rest of the state, and Lynn's accomplishments speak for themselves. President of the Michigan Association of
Municipal Clerks, Genesee County chapter. She was elected by her colleagues, elevated by her colleagues to the presidency last week here locally, and is on the board of directors of the Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks. And she deserves all the accolades that we can give her. And I very, very much appreciate it.
Let me hide behind the board, okay?
I do think we make a great team.
So compensation is definitely something, looking at all the work that you guys have taken on and
So-
the example that you're giving the rest of the state.
What-
Mr. Fike has.
A question?
Yeah, I had a couple things to say, but are you finished with your?
Okay, well, I want to speak.
We're going to shift to Lynn in just a moment.
Okay, but go ahead, Mr.
So,
you,
in
Mr.
the end, 2 things. Are you saying, Dave, you all deserve more compensation because of all this additional work?
Well, let me just say this is that I can't pay Lynn enough for what the township, I believe, can't pay her enough for what she does for us. And if you're asking my opinion, and the memorandum from the Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks speaks really to the issue of how we compensate the people that execute the elections in our polling places and our receiving boards and so on. So it's more all encompassing, speaks to the necessity for the professionalism and the compensation of our staff.
So that's a yes. So,
Well, I
one
guess-
other thing, forgive me. When this started, with all these new rules from the state, didn't they say, the state, hey, we're going to give you more money to cover all this? And that they would be, did we get any money from the state to do all this?
This was done by the voters. They voted for this.
Right.
So it has nothing, it was constitutional amendment changes. So the voters carried this out in 18 and in November 2022. And this only speaks to a little bit of the changes in Prop 22-2. There's a lot more to that. As a matter of fact, I told Clerk Robertson I needed to go like for a whole day just to study the changes coming for next year. There's so many that a lot of people don't even know that it's going to affect us on a day-to-day basis. So it's hard to figure out, is Secretary Benson saying also is that we don't know what next year is going to bring either with all these changes. Obviously, 9-day early voting changes a lot. The polling locations are dwindling down. For instance, in November, we only had 400 people show up in a polling location. Everything else was done absentee, and then our 62 voters that showed up for 9-day early voting. So with that being said,
My question is no then. We're not getting extra money from the state.
no.
It's on us.
We do get reimbursed, though, for the presidential primary on February 27th. Most of that money is reimbursed back to Grambling Township. Overtime wages, DPW wages, postage that we mail. Most everything is reimbursable for February. That's the only election next year that we'll get reimbursed for.
And we did get an election security grant for the high-speed counter, which covered a portion of the cost. If you remember, the board supported that, and so that was from the state. But
And also, we just got our laptops for 9-day early voting. They are supplying our equipment for 9-day early voting, so we're using ballot on demand here in Grambling Township. That is being supplied. A tabulator we do not need because we went from the high-speed scanner, like you said, so we have 7 extra tabulators currently because we used to have 7 AV county boards at one time. So the equipment, yes, there's coming through the state, so that's saving us some money, as well as I think one ballot on demand is $6,500. I think I was looking at $12,100 in our budget to have run 2 of those next year.
But the thing, imagine this, that we'd been running elections for the same way for 75 years, 60 years, what have you. We went from that to being able to come in, register to vote, and vote all in the same visit. That's never happened before. The technology has to be there to make sure that I'm not registering in every community and voting. So that has to all be interlaced together across the state. So the technology, the staffing, the training, the physical locations of, how we can do 9-day early voting and still be able to conduct business here, how we can staff that, ballot security and having locations within our building to be able to secure those. It's really, turn things 180 degrees on how we do things. Some things probably the state will figure out didn't work and we'll need to adjust again, but it isn't the end. We haven't seen the end of the changes, is what you're saying, Ms. Henry.
Changes are ever present.
Yep.
I can speak to that from my time in the Senate as chair of the Elections Committee. We were constantly making modifications to.
Well, to keep moving along, Ms. Henry, you had a presentation you wanted to make.
I do. So if you plan on running for office in 2024, just so you know, you'll need to file your nominating petitions and affidavit of identity by Tuesday, April 23rd at 4 p.m. here in our office. So if you plan on running, like I said, Tuesday, April 23rd by 4 p.m. On November 22nd, our Election Commission passed a resolution for permanent consolidation of precincts. I have been waiting for this, and it's been a rough 2 weeks waiting for this, but we were able to, precinct sizes were increased from 2,999 to 4,999. Grambling Township is taking advantage of that, and we are going from 17 precincts to 10 precincts, 8 locations to 4 locations. So in front of me, this map down here is the old map, and this is the new map right here. And so we're no longer using the elementary schools, Grambling Elementary Schools, those are being no longer used, or the old Bethany Baptist Church, which is Ecclesia now. So the old precincts 1 and 11 now are currently precinct 1, which will be over here at Twin Cities Baptist Church. Precinct 2 is remaining the same at Twin Cities Baptist Church, though, that we moved it to. Precincts 13 and 14, that was at Myers Elementary, now is precinct 3 at East Middle School. Precincts 4 and 9, they were both 4 and 9, are now 4 at East Middle School. Precinct 10, which is Goodrich, is now precinct 5 at Grand Blanc High School. Precinct 8 is staying as 8, but moving the number is 6 at Grand Blanc High School. And precincts 6 and 17 are being combined to precinct 7 at Grand Blanc High School. That's one of our biggest combinations, those two combining. But with the way our district lines draw, that was the cleanest way to keep it without having any ballot splits between county commissioner and House and State. So that would make the best consolidation for us. And then 3 and 16 will now be, precinct 5 and 15, which 5 was at Bethany and 15 was at Mason Elementary, is at West Middle School now. 3 and 16 were at West Middle School, now is precinct 9 will stay at West Middle School. And then precinct 7 and 12 were at West, and now they're precinct 10 and continue to stay at West Middle School.
Any suggestion to voters who've always gone to the same place, and this is kind of like disrupting them, to easily find where they're supposed to vote?
So statutorily, everyone will be getting a new voter ID card in the mail, and we'll have publications in the paper, on our website, on all of our social media. Also, Nate did a wonderful job on this, so this will show them exactly if they come in, they're not certain, they can click it, it'll show them exactly where they're voting at now on the kiosk. But yes, we'll be sending out a lot of information coming up, and there'll be a couple other things going out, like we have to notify also for 9-day early voting. So every household will be getting a postcard what hours 9-day early voting are too. So there's going to be a lot of election mail coming up, but we'll sit down with the View, make sure we get something out in writing ahead of time, probably twice at least, and make sure on our website and then definitely on the front of our social media too.
Okay,
Any further questions?
anything else?
No, that's it, thank you.
It's plenty, isn't it?
I was going to say, I hope there isn't more, because it's exhausting just hearing all the changes that are occurring. So, thank you very much for your great work in your department, too, Len.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for your attention and your support.
Okay, we will move on to item C under new business. And the board will hear a discussion of the Community Policing Co-Responder Grant Program application. We have Chief Rennie here this evening. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. We're very excited to bring this proposal to the board. So what this grant is through the Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement Standards, or MCLS. And this is a federally funded grant that MCLS had received $11 million. And essentially what they were asking was, what kind of effects, or the effects of COVID, what impact has that had on your community and the police department? There are some more specifics inside this grant that we had to include some youth engagement, and this was for a non-sworn law enforcement officer. So we were asked to submit some letter of interest for this grant. Some of those throughout the state were denied. Some of them were approved, which was the one that I had proposed. This is a co-responder program. This would be for 2 years, which the grant would run through. We're going to partner with Genesee Health Systems. And essentially what we identified was, how has COVID impacted our community and the effects on law enforcement? Is we've seen a lot of mental health issues due to COVID, anxiety, depression, increased suicide attempts and suicides. And it's also really affected our law enforcement officers as well due to those effects. So we got pretty much a three-pronged approach. So we got mental health, we got substance abuse disorder, and that mental wellness aspect that we could end up bringing to this department and to our community. What it was going to do, or what this will do, is with Genesee Health Systems, we're going to bring in a social worker, which would end up riding with our law enforcement personnel, preferably a crisis intervention trained officer. We currently have 9 of those over at our police department. And they're going to respond to those incidents of crisis. It could be just a family trouble to where that social worker could provide resources. If we get a master's level degree social worker, they could immediately do a referral to a mental health provider or substance abuse counselor as well. It's going to build that relationship within our department as well, to where our officers, once they experience a critical incident, that they could utilize that social worker as a confidant and seek some of their own help that they may need. Yeah. So I've been working with our grant writer, Linda Kirksey, and with Melissa Roberts, so it's been a great team effort. So Linda, I'd like you to come up and speak to some of that as well.
Such a wonderful job. I don't know. Leaving me to speak. This is a phenomenal opportunity that Chief has, through the letter of intent, gotten from MCOLS. We have a good grant coordinator with the state, this Kirsten Walters, who's very excited about us doing our submission. The 3 of us are working with Genesee Health Systems to develop the proposal. We're looking at everything that Chief has given us good data to support it. Anytime you're doing, I always look at evidence base, and I love working with police departments and fire departments when we're doing these kind of grants because we have the data to support it. That's why he has been invited in. And what that means in my world is that we're going to get the funding. We're structuring it. It's a 2-year program. We had to get that clarified. It's COVID dollars that they received, so we have to engage. And he contacts me now every day. He's like my new best friend to say, well, Linda, when do you think? I said, we're working on it right now. We're putting our budget together, and we're going to be doing a submission. It is due on December 28th. Happy New Year to us as far as that goes. We have a great opportunity, and I think this is going to be a tremendous program for the township and for your officers and for the community at large. So it's an honor to do this. This is wonderful.
Sounds like a fabulous program. You know, I think when people think of police or fire, they think that, you know, it's just all about, you know, writing tickets and catching bad guys, which it is, and putting out fires, but it's also seen some horrific situations. You know, even in the past month here in Grand Blanc Township, we've had a number of them. You know, and I'm not sure how you unsee some of that stuff that our officers, you know, both fire and police experience, but I think, you know, and what some of our families experience too, and needing assistance. And I think having somebody that's trained in that specifically, especially, you know, higher education in it, could be very helpful to our community as well. And obviously, the more well-adjusted our firefighters and police are, the better they can serve our community as well. So we want to keep our people healthy and doing their job well and being able to deal with some of the things they have to come and, you know, counter with. So.
And we have met with Genesee Health Systems as well, and they're very, very excited for this opportunity.
Very good. Mr. Fike?
I know grant writing is an art form, so kudos to you guys for putting that all together. How much is the grant for?
Well, we're going to be doing salary benefits of what this resource co-respondent working, social worker, I should say, at a master's level. So right now we're massaging the budget because there's things that are going to be involved, you know, cell phone, all the things. So we're looking at that right now. And we'll be able to give you that once we do the submission. But, you know, we're looking at the range of what they've offered. And Genesee Health Systems has been very, very good providing us data of, you know, to make sure we're not off range, you know, job responsibilities. We asked them to give us, you know, kind of the criteria because Genesee County Sheriff's Department is kind of our model because you've utilized, you know, their social worker before. So we're looking at what those costs are. And in our discussions, we've said, you know, give us everything that normally what it costs, you know, for us to have an MSW with a master's degree versus a bachelor's degree. And how successful are you, and what are the job responsibilities? Can you give that to us so we can incorporate it? Because we want our model to reflect the success they've had. So that's what we're looking at. We'll have a better idea as we do the submission at the end of the month, and we can present it to you.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
I'll say what really sparked this for me was an incident that we had responded to back at the end of September involving a suicide with a 19-year-old resident. Who found that was the siblings, 15 and 12. So I went to the scene. These children are very, very distraught. I reached out to one of our crisis intervention trained officers, said, what kind of resources can we provide to these children, like now, ASAP? And so we reached out to this Genesee County team, which is a co-responder team. We ended up coming up with a solution because the father at that point still did not know the exact details of what had happened to his child out in the backyard. We said, hey, you know what, I'll call him off the porch, give him the details while this co-respondent team will then reach out to those children. And I'm happy to say I have done follow-up and they are still reaching out to those resources that we were able to provide that day.
Is this a 50/50 match?
50/50 match?
Completely funded.
No match required.
That's
We love
great.
that. But yet, we're going to show a lot of the things that we do, like our in-kind contribution, officer time. So it shows, our dedication to it as well. But it's not a cash match. No, it is not. We love that.
That's fabulous. Any other questions or concerns? Okay, very good work, and we look forward to hearing more. So thank you very much. Okay, item D, the board will consider a motion to renew the Township Antivirus Software and 24/7 Security Operations Center annual subscription fee for the 2024 through the Center for Internet Security in the amount of $7,200 and authorize the superintendent to execute all related contracts and documents. Mr. Lucevelt.
Hello, this is a renewal. It is an existing expense. It is a decrease of $3,360 from the prior year. Because I have recently learned and have taken advantage of some free licensing that the election infrastructure ISAC provides in relation to licensing that can go on our election infrastructure equipment.
Fabulous. A $3,000 reduction? That's great.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Yep.
Any questions? Yes, making the motion, Mr. White? Yes. Okay, supported by Mr. Fike?
Motion by White, supported by Fike. Fike?
Yes.
Okay, on item 9D, Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you. And now item E, the board will consider a motion to approve the implementation of an Albert sensor intrusion detection system and monthly subscription fees of $1,350. The board authorized the superintendent to execute all related contracts and documents. Mr. Lucevelt?
Okay, so this is an intrusion detection system. It is something, or I guess I should start off with, while a lot of what I've been implementing over the years since I've started here has been about hardening our existing infrastructure and preventing attacks, what we lack is what's called an IDS, and that's an intrusion detection system, and that is what alerts us to when something does get through or somebody is actively attacking us. We don't necessarily have the greatest technology to do that right now. So an IDS, or this Albert system, will alert us in real time on unauthorized access, suspicious behavior, or security breaches, helping protect against cyber threats. The Albert sensor from the Center of Internet Security is an industry-leading IDS designed specifically for state, local, tribal, and territorial government organizations. They have implemented and deployed over 1,000 Albert sensors to date.
So it alerts you by cell phone or?
24/7 operation, and they'll call me if after hours, it'll be my cell phone.
Yes, Mr. Kilmer?
What kind of, I'm not clear on what type of attacks are we talking about? Are we talking about internet attacks? Are we talking about physical, somebody smashing in the front door and coming in and?
This is, as far as network attacks would go, it will detect both outside internet attacks to our network, as well as internal, potentially somebody inside the building attacking our network as well. But it's our network itself, not physical security.
So, Mr. Lucebot, I think at one time, or maybe you were able to see, I don't know if it's viruses or intrusion, but I recall hearing that we have quite a few that come in from outside the country even, right?
Yeah, we get biweekly reports from the MS-ISAC where we do monitor our DNS, basically hits to our DNS, and our firewall actually also can point out some attacks that happen on a daily basis that are attempting to exploit vulnerabilities that luckily we patch as soon as possible, so they're not actually, but there's always things out there that are called 0 days, which means nobody knows about them yet, so I can't patch them. And so this system will work and can detect when something like that gets through.
They come from all over the world.
All over the world, yeah.
So it's something that we would hate to have happen. I mean, we talk about elections and having to be connected to the internet and what have you in the past. Really wasn't, connected at all, but we are now, so.
Yeah, and these are often put in locations with election infrastructure.
Okay, what's your thoughts?
This is $1,300 a month?
Total of $16,200 a year.
Okay, it's actually inexpensive compared to the damage that could happen or the ransom
You're talking millions.
Yeah, you're talking
potential
millions
ransom.
for ransom.
Okay.
So I'll make the motion.
Okay. Motion by Bennett, and I will support that motion, Mr. Supervisor, if I may.
Okay.
All right. Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lucebel. Item F, the board will hear first reading of ordinance 24-01 regarding our noise ordinance. And just so happened, I've had some people message me regarding our noise ordinance in the last 48 hours, so we're right on topic.
Yep.
Good evening, Mr. Smith.
Good evening. As you're aware, I'm tasked with updating the zoning ordinance. With that too, Superintendent Lehman has also tasked me with looking at the general ordinances when I feel that they're out of line. The one before you right now is our noise and public nuisance ordinance. Working with Attorney Laddie and with Jill Boehm, our planning consultant from Giffords Webster, we kind of went through the ordinance, seeing where it didn't match with current standards. Basically, the definitions haven't changed at all. You'll see in your handout in red, there's a strikeout where the changes we're asking to be made. Changing the times, basically the limitations, instead of going from 7 to 10 p.m., we're looking to go from 7 to 9 p.m. as our general operating time frame, and changing that decibel from 55 to 90, and then also upgrading our quiet time, changing that from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m., and updating that from 50 to 60 decibels. On page 3, the only other changes are basically to keep in line with the decibels, to change truck and buses to 90 from 82, and for over 10,000 pounds, and then under as well from 74 to 90 decibels.
Yes, Mr. White.
How many complaints do we actually get that sort of fall in this window of decibels?
This was brought to light by a site plan violation that we've had that's been ongoing, and this is to combat that going forward. Looking through this ordinance and seeing what we have on file is not appropriate for today's standards. A normal operating lawnmower operates at 80 to 85 decibels on a normal day. So we feel that with talking with Jill, her municipalities that she's in charge of throughout the state, this is in line with those other municipalities.
And there's some sort of model code for these property maintenance issues like this, isn't there? A maintenance code or?
There is.
What does that say on these? I guess I would like to know what sort of is the best practice. Because I agree, 55 and 50 seems low, but 90 seems kind of high, and frankly, I don't hear a lot of people coming to me and saying we want noisier things around us.
Well, you're exactly right. I don't know exactly what the International Property Maintenance Code calls for as far as noise goes. If you saw older noise ordinances, they were more subjective than anything else. And the decibel, your point regarding the decibels is a good one. We did find that our previous levels were unrealistically low. And one of the things that's been interesting to me is I've watched these ordinances develop from just a subjective complaint of someone being upset about noise to relying on decibels. And that was problematic for a long time. But, and this has become more and more common, of course, there's an app for that. So on your phone, you can get a decibel meter that is not, it's not calibrated the same way that some of the commercial ones are. But you can measure sound pretty accurately on your phone. And we had that happen, actually. We had somebody who was complaining about noise, had a phone, had a decibel meter, was recording the decibel meter while you could hear the sound. And it was very interesting to see, to correlate what you could hear on the phone to the decibel meters. So we, again, following the study through Giffords-Webster and research that Jeremy did, we adjusted it upward because that's more realistic. But decibels are going to be more, and I like it as a lawyer, and you will too, because it's a lot easier to enforce this when you have somebody, just a layperson, able to use a decibel meter. And I think we'll probably get more and more complaints based on decibels in the future. The one that we were able to really see this work with was sort of a repetitive machine noise. I don't know if it's going to work. It might work for somebody in a situation where there's loud music or other things that are fairly consistent. But I, like you, I don't want more noise, but I want to get an ordinance that's realistic to enforce.
I think part of the challenge we're facing as a municipality is that as our density becomes higher, in terms of having businesses and residents near each other, this, plays out. Even some of the vehicle exhaust systems, even on newer vehicles, you can tune them. You can actually, press, select what exhaust sound you want, on your dashboard. And I know of other communities where people have been driving new cars. Of course, it would never happen here in Grand Blanc. Driving a brand new car and they're pulled over for noise ordinance violation. So I think it's important that we get it right. Yes, Mr. Lehman.
I think in the case that Attorney Laddie was talking about when we had the person filming the decibel meter, what was interesting to us is that the noise from Saginaw Street, which was, there are a few houses off of Saginaw down the neighborhood street, exceeded our decibel meter at 7 a.m. Just the vehicles on Saginaw Street exceeded the 55.
Right.
So that's when we really started taking a look at what's the appropriate one. And I think you're right, Trustee White, is what's that appropriate number? And when we talked with Giffords-Webster, we asked them if, when you look at what other municipalities have, because we've always said you don't ever want to have an ordinance that either you can't or won't enforce. 55 we can't enforce because we'd have to stop the traffic on Saginaw Street in order to live with it. Mm-hmm. Especially in this case where we had somebody who was really complaining in it, and the actual cause of the noise was disruptive, and it was too early, and they were outside the time frames. But then it was hard for us to enforce something that literally the traffic noise at 7 a.m. was already louder than our decibels would allow. So I don't know if 90 is the right decibel. I think it's a great point. It's where's our threshold? And it was a hard number to come up with. I don't think it was, from us looking at other communities, there wasn't a standard, right? Or we could say, well, 90% of the communities are here. I mean, they were all over the place.
Right. We weren't, this 90 is not the highest, but 90 is not the lowest either. So we're kind of in a middle area.
Our police have any thoughts on it?
Most of our complaints come through like loud exhaust. So we've been receiving a couple of those, which ours somewhat mirrors state law, and plus there is defective equipment that we could always issue as far as that through the motor vehicle code. So, you know, I mean, I think that this would probably be a good thing to have the decibel meter, so level anyway, on those issues too. Less subjectiveness anyway.
I think some of these loud exhausts are out of hand. You're sitting there at the stoplight and some guy's got this thing in their truck and it scares the you-know-what out of you, and then you can hear them for the next, mile. I don't know, do you stop a guy like that or a person like that, Chief, or do you say, my hands are tied?
No, absolutely. If we're not responding to a call and we actually hear the violation and we're not targeting maybe a specific intersection for some of those more hazardous violations, such as red light running or trying to prevent crashes, absolutely, we can stop those vehicles. And sometimes we do and take the correct enforcement action. A lot of our stuff is for education purposes to where we make those citizen contacts, and frequently we will give a warning to say, hey, this exhaust is illegal, you have to take it off, and this can result in a ticket here in the future.
And this is the first reading, so we can always make adjustments if we have people, public, come in and make convincing arguments. So we find some evidence that we want to adjust, correct, Mr. Laddie?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And to Mr. Trustee White's question, I'm not seeing any regulations for noise in the International Property Maintenance Code.
Any further thoughts?
Mr. Bennett, I'd like to request that if we do set a public hearing, that it be for January 23rd to do the public hearing correctly?
January 23rd?
Yes.
So for the second reading?
Yes.
So we don't need to have a public hearing specifically for it, but we should set a date for the second reading. Is that what you mean?
So we're going to have second reading and then a public hearing?
No, you just have first reading and second reading.
Okay.
This is a standalone
Okay.
ordinance, so we're good to go with just adoption, first reading, publication in the meantime, second reading, and then publication again.
Okay, so second reading I'd request for January 23rd, yes.
Okay. Any other thoughts or?
Just following up, it sounds like there's a disconnect between vehicles and property, for lack of real estate. And I get that everyone seems to have the issues more with the vehicles to some extent than the real estate noise.
Right.
So I don't know, is the ordinance as written really differentiate at all between that? It doesn't appear to. I mean, is that something that going forward needs to be bifurcated?
I would say this is more targeted towards real estate. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Laddie.
Motor vehicle code.
Just be, okay.
Okay. So at this time, yes, Mr. Gilmer?
I think that we do have, that if we're going to consider this, that we also have to consider that the police do have some tools currently that they can use. Say, you're making too much noise or whatever. So I'm not sure that we need another layer of legality here.
Go ahead, Mr.
I understand your point, and we do, and in this ordinance, we still have the subjective standard in this ordinance if we need it. If we can't get a decibel reading, then we can go with the subjective standard. When I have enforced that in the past, I've usually wanted, you'll sometimes see noise ordinances that talk about a disturbance to a neighborhood. And the way that I interpret that for presenting to the court the violations, I usually want to have, at least two witnesses to a complaint, and I want to have them both testify that there's a disturbance to the neighborhood. And so we still have that here. The police still have disorderly conduct. They have potentially other means as well. But I really like having the decibel piece in there if we can get decibel evidence, because it's much clearer to the judge.
Makes it much more.
So we still have both, but but there are fallbacks either way.
Makes it more objective. So what action do we need to take, Mr. Laddie, right now?
So tonight, if you were inclined to adopt the ordinance, then you would accept or adopt the ordinance in its form as your first reading, knowing that you'll get another chance at it for the second reading. So a motion to adopt ordinance 24-01 would be appropriate.
Is it an action item, Mr. Supervisor?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, so this is,
24-0.
board will hear this is 9F?
Correct, 24-01. So I'll make the motion. Is there a second? Mr. Fike?
Okay, motion by Bennett, seconded by Fike. Okay, trustee Fike,
Yes.
trustee White,
Yes.
trustee Raridan,
Yes.
treasurer Kilmer,
Yes.
myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett,
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Item G, the board will hear the first reading for ordinance 23-02 to reopen the PUD for Heritage Park.
Yes, so I've been working with Attorney Laddie and Chief Rennie with this, knowing that we have the issue with the semi-parking at the Walmart Heritage Park site. So this is to combat that and give us more teeth in order to alleviate that problem.
Okay. Any comments, Mr. Laddie?
No, other than if you scroll through your materials in your packet, you'll see this ordinance, which is 2023-2. And it talks about the ability of a property owner to give their consent for the township to not patrol, but to if there are proper signs posted, to eliminate overnight parking. We did this with the consent of the developers of Heritage Park. And if you scroll through, you'll see potentially a reference to a state statute, and our ordinance is an adaptation of this state statute. And it's I don't know if you'll find this interesting or not, but we've adopted the motor vehicle code in its entirety by reference, and that's primarily the mechanism we use to enforce traffic violations. This is a section of the uniform traffic code, which we have not adopted in its entirety, but we're just really taking this section and picking that out of there. And it's just to give clear authority to the township, I was going to say the police department, but we're probably going to have a direct communication with the towing company that will tow these vehicles, these offending vehicles, and our signs will be a little bit different than what you'll see in the packet, because they'll identify a towing company and a number and say, if your vehicle is towed, call this number. So it really just gives us clear authority to eliminate the problem that Mr. Smith and Mr. Anderson have alluded to, with minimal involvement from our police department. So you'll see new signs up there. And I know that as always, the chief is going to implement this in a way that is not meant to catch people off guard. Probably deployed in a way that contains warnings and other methods. And again, this is an ordinance. So if you're inclined to adopt it, you'd be adopting ordinance 23-2, and just like the first one, there'll be a second reading that probably Mr. Smith will request to be probably on the same date in January.
Yes, please.
I appreciate that our police will, you can talk to our police, and, giving out tickets is the last thing. Same with our code enforcement. I mean, we try to get people in compliance, not penalize people. So I think there'll be some time for some education, and it's kind of turned into a transfer station over there. We've got people parking semi-trailers with no truck even attached to them and leaving them there. We have whole fleets of trucks parked there for extended periods of time. So I mean, if it were just merely somebody running in, to the store or taking a break for an hour or two, I don't think anybody would have a problem. But it's turned into a facility for people, or businesses housing their trailers there. And we have received a number of complaints, and I know other municipalities in the area surrounding us have had similar problems and did similar, took similar action. So we're not alone in that. Clerk?
Yes.
Mr. Kilmer?
Is this strictly for trucks, or is it trucks and cars?
The ordinance,
It can be used for both, but we're primarily focused on the trucks.
Okay.
And to your point about enforcement, I understand that the company that will be towing these has the ability to tow a fully attached semi-truck trailer, the whole kit and caboodle could go away. So there will be some grumpy people potentially that, if they're not in compliance.
and we're not alone. You travel around the state, you'll see other Walmart parking lots that do not allow overnight parking. South Lyon, for example, they have signs up all over their parking lot that no overnight whatsoever, and they will be towed. Clerk Robertson, you had a hand, and then we'll go to.
Yeah,
Mr.
a question. So are these trucks being parked there with the permission of the Walmarts? Or
No,
No, they actually.
and Heritage?
no. The problem is they have no enforcement. At the Burton Walmart, they have a rent-a-cop that's there 24/7. They do not have that here in Grand Blanc.
One might choose one's words carefully. With cops in the audience, they might take offense at that verbiage, that colloquialism.
Yes.
Might be more the security guards that.
Yes, security guards, I'm sorry.
Well, the security guards might take offense. I'm not sure our police.
So we've gotten complaints from the ownership
From the public.
No, but I'm talking from the businesses there.
We've had talks with them, and they've said that they didn't really have they didn't think they had the authority, correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Laddie?
No, they have said all along that they will agree to whatever enforcement mechanisms we want to implement. And that's why, and we amended the PUD agreement with their signature on it that says that we have the authority to do that. And so they haven't obstructed us in any way. They haven't gone out of way to solve the problem, but they're saying, help yourself. If this is upsetting to you, we'll give you permission to enforce it.
Okay.
Mr. White?
No, it's probably been answered, but these aren't like the long haul truck drivers just sleeping there. It's people parking and just
Yes,
leaving.
for days.
Both.
Like
Oh.
there's completely
Both.
different sort of, yeah.
He says it's both.
It's
Both.
Drive by there.
It's both.
Drive by there tonight, you'll see a semi-trailer parked there with no truck attached.
Right.
At least one of them.
Where are we going to refer these people?
We're going to be right on the.
That's part of the problem.
Like, where would they park?
Well, yeah. I mean.
You can look right across the road.
Issue, but it's kind of, do we want a bunch of half-asleep truckers just mulling around?
You look across the road, though. You've got Sharko Trucking has their fleet parked there. You look at I've got some of the names of the trucking companies in my head already just from seeing them there, but there's one particular truck line that may have 6 trucks parked there. You can't tell me those are all individuals just looking for a place to park while they rest. It's an actual company saying, hey, park your semis here, nobody bothers. The warehouse next, actually going south from Walmart, used to be a facility where people parked all kinds of semis. There's places for, trucks to unload. You don't see any semis over there now. I think they booted them off their property. What do other communities do?
Not in our town, that's what we're saying.
House either, but
Yeah, we don't allow them on public streets, or on side streets either, so they can't park them at their home either.
So they're
We
gonna have
do already have an ordinance against that.
they're gonna have to find a place other than
Find somewhere else.
parking lot.
Mhm.
to park.
What's the provision? How long does a truck have to be there, or can it? Is it 2 hours, 2 days?
Defined overnight.
Who's gonna? How are we going to?
Weren't the hours detailed that we're not allowing trucks to be parked between certain hours?
We can include that in the signs if we want to do that. Currently the language talks about overnight parking, but I'm in favor of at least as far as our signs go, narrowing that to what we believe is a reasonable representation of overnight parking, and it won't be. We can pick something that is going to be fair.
You can use the range for the noise ordinance.
We could do that.
But what time our trucks coming in, waiting in the morning before they unload. This has been a challenge since when I got here in 2015, it was an issue that people were coming to the board then. We've talked about it since at least 2015, going back. It's an issue. We've got trucks there, and it's been, we routinely receive multiple complaints all year long and have since 2015. When we first approached it, we're like, can we find an alternative? Like, the best way to do it is if we had an alternative, like, hey, there is truck parking allowed at, the X lot, whatever, because some of them are parking trucks who could be truck drivers who they can't park it in front of their house. They're looking for a space to park their truck while they run home for a night or 2 nights or whatever. Some guys are overnight long haul truckers who are looking for a place to sleep. Others are if they're getting there, but they're not scheduled to unload until morning. So I think there's some challenges, and I am concerned about the ordinance because I think we could be setting ourselves up for some challenges because we're going to have to define, or if we're going to put it on signs, no parking between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m., for example. How do we justify when the trucker's like, well, I'm supposed to unload at 5 a.m. and I rolled in at 2 and I got to sit here till they're letting me in. Like, where do I go for those 3 hours? So that's my biggest concern with where we're going with this ordinance, and it has been for the 8 years that we've been looking at it that I'm aware of.
I think the trucks, though, that are there, the people that are unloading at Walmart and Sam's, there's a whole entire area behind those stores that I see the semis that are unloading parked back there. The trucks that are parked out front, my best guess is that they are not people unloading at Walmart or Sam's, because there's an entire area for that type of thing behind the store. I mean, there's plenty of space for them to park, and I have seen them because I do drive back through there. But I think most of these people are, you look at the names on the side of the truck, and there's a couple of companies that have 5, 6 trucks parked there on a weekend. So, Dr. Reardon?
So, I mean, why don't we just say occupied? I mean, if it's an unoccupied truck, if somebody is there at 2 o'clock to make a delivery at 7 in the morning, I think it's unreasonable for us to, attack them for that. But if it's an unoccupied truck, like you're saying, and they're there for the weekend, then have at it.
How do you define that, though?
Occupied, somebody would be in it.
Well, I thought we had discussed an hour that there's a time frame that we were going to use for the overnight portion. Was there or no?
So the language of the PUD talks about prohibited overnight parking. Maintain signs prohibiting overnight parking in all areas. And if we want to define overnight parking on a sign, we could try to do that. The other thing we can do, of course, is you can table this and we can continue to develop it. Because it's a tough question. It's a transient question. And and I think, and Supervisor Bennett pointed out, there will be obvious cases, and then there will be not so obvious cases. And to Superintendent Lima's point, we're not looking for trouble necessarily. We're looking to minimize a nuisance. So if you want, we can hold on this one and continue to make sure that we've refined it.
Couldn't we, if somebody's parking at Walmart and they're delivering there, we could, and they're in that there because they're going to deliver at 7 in the morning for whatever reason, why wouldn't we allow that? But let's say somebody is parking there and they're going to deliver someplace 50 miles north, then the officers could knock on the window and take care of, say, sorry, you're in violation. I mean, I think we're trying, this is going to, if we just put the term occupied in there, because otherwise we can have these people move. You can knock on the window and say, you've got to move. I think we're making this more difficult than it has to be.
David, is it possible for us to, so this is the first reading of this tonight, right?
Mm-hmm.
could we, and we need to have a second reading and
Correct.
have you, is it possible that we could, continue to do the first reading this evening, or consider this a first reading, but not schedule the second reading until sometime in January when we have a chance to research it further and maybe make some adjustments?
We can do that, but we don't want to have any, and this isn't an exact term, but we don't want to have any major substantive changes in this ordinance. If we want to refine it down, as far as enforcement goes, then we could have a
Right
change
before.
between the first and second reading. If we feel like we're going to have a wholesale change or something that's substantively different, I would ask you to hold off on the first. And by the way, I don't think necessarily the definition of overnight or occupied versus unoccupied is a substantive change. So if that's kind of where you're going, then you could go ahead and do the first reading tonight.
That's my thought, is we need to do something, but I'm not sure how we make it more specific, and maybe we need to do some research. But there are other communities that do have it on their signage. I know that South Lyon, for example, has one. We can talk to them and find out how they enforce it, but they have signs everywhere there.
I like the KISS principle on this.
Yes.
I mean,
Right. Make it simple.
Yeah, if they are there in their truck and they're going to deliver someplace else, it's easy enough to move them on. I'm guessing you're not going to hook up while they're sitting right there. You're not going to tow it away with them sleeping in the back.
That Walmart and Sam's can tell their delivery people, hey, you're not allowed to park out there. You park behind the building, where the rest of the trucks park.
So, but in reality, if somebody is parking there and they're not supposed to, the police are going to say, you got to move on. We're not going to hook up and tow
Right.
if somebody's in there. It's the people that are just leaving it
the
over the
truck.
weekend that
Right.
we're going to
Put a
be good
sticker
with.
on their window or whatever and tell them, hey, don't do this in the future.
So, I don't.
Yeah. Yes, Clerk Robertson.
I would welcome a little bit of a slowdown in this, because I'm trying to understand, how are these things routinely handled? I mean, is...
They're not. We leave them there.
No, I'm talking about, but if you're the industry being served by the trucker who's delivering, okay, then they have to have an understanding with their delivery people with regard to what is and is not permissible. And are these complaints? I mean, we're hearing it from constituency, all right, and citizens. But are we hearing a complaint from the business and industry
They have a
themselves?
specific drive for deliveries and a parking area. You look at Dort Highway, there's a sign right on Dort, says all deliveries.
And
the trucks, there's parking spaces behind there for them. And you drive back there on any given day, you'll see semis parked back there. Those aren't the problem, because they aren't getting people parking back there that are leaving their truck for the weekend. And I don't believe I have never seen a Walmart truck parked out in that area, out in the front area.
So the PUD was created with this in mind, as far as how the trucks were to come and go, all right? But that's being exceeded because people are parking there, or people are parking their trucks there, but they're doing legitimate business with the residents of the businesses in this PUD.
Not necessarily.
That's a question, not a statement. I'm asking.
I think part of the problem is there excessive parking in Walmart's parking lot, and this is just where they're overflowing to.
There's car haulers there. The car
Right.
haulers aren't there obviously for Walmart or Sam's or any
Right.
other store right there.
Okay. Well, I have more questions than answers at this point, but I'm amenable to what the board wants to do, as far as it being a first reading.
Could you explain, if this ordinance were to pass as is, well, put a time on it, I don't care. If one of your officers at 2 a.m. saw a truck in the middle of Walmart's parking lot, I'm guessing, okay, it's passed, this is an issue, you're gonna go knock on the window, right? I mean, you're not gonna call a tow truck right then.
Right. So ideally, what I would like to see is, since the township has the permission to get with the tow truck company, is to have the tow truck company drive through the parking lot. Because we are very busy, to quite frankly be the parking place all the time at Walmart is a strain on our resources. So I would rather have the tow truck company go there. And yes, I have communicated that with him, and he has communicated back that to me. Hey, if they're occupied, I would not tow that. Yes, exactly. And he goes, and I may end up calling you guys for a standby or something. Yep, go ahead and do that.
Okay, I mean, that's essentially, and if it's unoccupied?
Yes. Then that would be impounded.
Correct.
Yes.
I mean, this seems pretty simple to me. I just don't.
Okay. So we have a couple different avenues we can go. We can consider this our first reading and do the second reading sometime in January or later and take a look at what some other municipalities do or other, with their Walmarts and, you know, shopping centers, what have you. Or we can table it and look at a wholesale change possibly. So I would be in favor of considering this our first reading and
Discussion.
and making whatever necessarily adjustments, and we can wait till we hear back from Mr. Smith, or, you know, Mr. Laddie, Chief Rennie, that, hey, we're ready to move forward. We think we have a solution to this.
Sure.
But I would say let's make this our first reading. We can always make wholesale adjustment, I guess, if we had to, but.
How about if we do this also, let's not set a date for the second reading in case we need a little more time than.
And then you guys can advise us when you're ready to come forward with a suggested, maybe language.
Sounds good.
How's that sound to our board?
I support that.
Sound okay?
So are we taking a vote on item 9G,
Mr. White?
I guess we just need to figure out what we do with all the semis when they go, because when we kick them out of Walmart, they're not just going to leave Grand Blanc Township. They're going to look for the nearest.
They probably came over here from Mundy Township, which
They're gonna
said they
end
couldn't
up
be
at
in their
the
township
movie
either.
theater parking lot or something like, so I mean, we may solve it, and then we're being Walmart's governance because they outsource everything to everyone else, so fits the
Right.
pattern anyways, so. So I don't think we really know what we're gonna do after that, but, I mean, unless we're gonna turn the police into just patrolling at night, looking for any semis parked everywhere, because they're gonna find other spots to go to. I mean, they're not just gonna be like, well, they said no, it's time to move on up north. I mean, this isn't.
We get people parking them in their driveway or what have you, and we've had
Code enforcement or the police have gone after them.
goes out and lets them know you're not allowed to park your semi in your driveway.
Is code enforcement out at night?
No.
No.
I see.
What's that?
The semi in the driveway.
Right, which we don't allow that. And
We do
have
not,
enforcement, let them know. And if somebody's parking it in there, it's not going to be a one-time thing. They're living there and they're probably parking it regularly. So you're going to have to find someplace permanent. Same with motorhomes. I mean, in the past, we said, hey, you know, what are we going to do with people parking their motorhomes and their boats in their front yard? Well, guess what? They had to find a place to put them too. You know, we said we're not going to allow that. And same will go with semis, that you're going to have, maybe somebody will open a business to find a place to park them, you know.
How about our truck stop?
I'm sure everybody wants one of those in their neighborhood.
There's one at Grand Blanc in 23.
Actually, that is not. That is actually one of them that they actually enforced the no overnight at. Mundy Township did not zone that or approve overnight parking there. And so what you think is a truck stop at the McDonald's gas station there at 23 and Grand Blanc Road, when I said other municipalities have booted them out, that's one of them. So you've got a place there that looks actually like a truck stop, that they don't want them overnight there because of some of the things that they're afraid that it will attract. And we have had complaints from people claiming that some of those things are starting to occur at the Walmart parking lot. I don't have any firsthand knowledge of that, and I haven't heard anything from our police, but I have heard it from people that serve on some of our committees. But so anyways, be that it may, do we need to vote on this then?
Correct.
Is a motion in order, Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
And I will make that motion.
I'll support it.
And Supervisor Bennett supports on item 9G 23-2, first reading. Trustee White?
No.
No, okay. Trustee Raritan?
Yes.
Trustee Fike?
No.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yeah, I'll say yes because it's the first reading.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
Yes, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. The motion passes 4 votes to 2.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know it was a difficult subject, and we'll get some clarity, hopefully. Item H, the board will consider a motion for the purchase of 37 Taser 10s by Axon Enterprise for $153,247 and authorize the superintendent to authorize all related contracts.
Yeah, so this is a 2024 capital project, and I want to make it clear that this can be broken down into 5 installments of each year. The first one that we would ask to do is in 2024, $33,145.02. And the reason why we are placing this on the agenda today, although it's for next year's project, is because of an increase of about 10% that these would go up, so it would save the township money. We would not end up taking possession of these tasers this year. It would end up going on the 2024 to take possession.
How often do we need to replace tasers, just out of curiosity?
So our tasers that we currently have are the X26. They're typically a 5-year warranty. And the issue that we're running into right now is once those are out of warranty, we're sending those in for repair, only for Taser to send those back to us, marking that they're out of service. If we were to place those in service and then we were to have an incident where one of those tasers tragically killed somebody, then that would be on the township as a civil suit could be against us, so, yeah.
Clerk Robertson?
I'm just out of curiosity. How often do you have to use these tasers?
Well, last year we had 29 use of force incidents. 8 of them resulted in the subject who was resistant being tasered. So about 1/3 of our incidents result in a use of the taser deployment, and that's for the safety of not only the officer, but for that person utilizing the use of force.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Okay. Yes, Mr. White?
Times, and I've seen this given my profession, how many times did they not deploy properly?
So out of those 8 times, we had 5 times that person was actually incapacitated due to the taser. Sometimes, speaking from personal experience, one time the taser cartridge, it ended up popping. However, the taser probes did not extract from the cartridge. Other reasons why those were ineffective is because the taser probe did not end up going through the subject's jacket to get a good connection into the muscle tissue to where that taser would be ineffective. However, with these Taser 10s, there's new technology. It's more impactful. The taser probe's a little bit longer. So they believe that they enhance that. This Taser 10 is the latest and greatest by Taser or Axon.
Okay. I'll make the motion that we move forward with this purchase.
Motion by Bennett.
Supported by Reardon.
Supported by Raridan. Okay. Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
No.
Okay. Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
5-1, motion passes.
Thank you. Item I, the board will consider Resolution 23-49 to set the first public hearing for the Orchard Haven Subdivision Special Assessment District at a regularly scheduled board meeting on January 9th, 2023 at 6 p.m. at Grand Lake Township Hall. Mr. Laddie?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I was reviewing a hearing that we have coming up. So this is the resolution to set just the first hearing for the Orchard Haven subdivision. We want to set this on January 9th. Before that hearing, we will send out notices for publication in the paper. We'll send out notices to the property owners. We'll give them the estimates of the scope of the project and the cost. And so just like, it seems like we've been on a conveyor belt of special assessment projects, and this is just the latest version of it. So if you're up for another one, this would be the motion to adopt, or the resolution to adopt for Orchard Haven.
You care to make that motion? Make the motion. Okay. Supported by Mr. White.
Motion by Fike, supported by White. Item 9I. Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thanks. Item J, the board will consider a motion to approve complete distribution systems and material inventory, CDSMI Design, Engineering, and Construction Engineering Services proposal from Rowe Professional Services for $38,500 and authorize the Township Superintendent to execute all related contracts and documents. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm going to go ahead and let the Assistant Director take the lead on this. He's worked hard on getting this prepared before I was hired on.
Okay, Director. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
I got Scott here with our engineer with Rowe. So this is a proposal for Rowe to manage a program that is required by Eagle. So this
Required by who?
Eagle, State of Michigan.
Okay, all right.
Also, which is set by the EPA. So because of the whole lead crisis, all distribution systems have to do a complete material inventory of their services. Now, this is, the catalyst is 1989 or earlier. If you have records and stuff, you can kind of bypass this. Our records do not really show what material is in the ground. We didn't really start keeping track of that to the late 90s or 2000s, but our water system, the oldest is 1968. Lead was not a thing. But by requirement of the state, we'll have to excavate 320 roughly water services and get 3 witness points. So out at the property line and then a witness at the meter. So Rowe will run this project. We'll have to contract out for a hydro excavation company, and we'll provide inspection in-house for Grand Lake Township. I've got Scott here if you have any questions on what their proposal is, or if you have questions for me.
Any questions, Mr. Fike?
So the state's requiring this, can we send them the bill? Nope.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Mr. Kilmer?
So are we looking for lead? Is that the issue here?
We're verifying our services. I'm confident. I've been in the system for 23 years. There's no lead. But we have to, because we don't have the accurate records or ordinances that state that copper was the known material put in, we have to verify it.
Yeah.
So
I think what we're doing is we're proving that we don't have lead would be a better way to put it.
There's actually legislation that had been proposed this past year that would have required us to inspect inside the houses too. So, it didn't go anywhere yet, but it's proposed.
Do we know the cost? I mean, the 38 is for Rowe, but how much roughly?
It's difficult because it's a random sample, so we don't know where the locations are. So our estimate, we assumed half of them were going to be like in a sidewalk, or we're going to have to replace pavement, which is more expensive. So we're thinking in the $400,000 range for the excavation. Yeah.
That we're going to pay?
Correct. Yeah.
400,000?
Yeah. We'll open bids and probably have this ready to bid in February, and then we'll have the number and bring it to the board.
So it's randomly selected, the locations are?
Yeah, you use Excel to generate random numbers, and that's how we picked the 320.
And with most of our standards, we require curb stops and services to be out of pavement. So majority of, there are some that are in pavement, but I believe, that's a high estimate.
Yeah, could be cheaper. Yep. Yes.
So with us, I mean, we're a wholesale customer of the Genesee County water system, right? Is that why we're having to do this ourselves? Or what happens in other municipalities where they don't have their own water system?
Well, so like, I give you a prime example, like Mundy Township.
Right.
Genesee County Water and Waste is their operation and maintenance company that runs
Right.
the system. Mundy Township the municipality owns the system. We own our system. We also operate and maintain our system. That's why it's our responsibility.
So they're going to have Genesee County doing the same thing or bidding it out for their municipality?
Genesee County, I think, has completed their program. So they had some potholing to do.
To your question, though, yeah, all the communities have to do it that have a water system.
Yeah.
We're not the only ones having to pick up this cost.
Same thing in Clio, we're doing this for them, City of Ithaca, a couple ones that come to mind.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're not the only ones picking up our tab for this.
No, we're all on the same boat.
It's been discussed at length. I mean, we knew it was coming, and as they were working through the legislation, it's a direct result of the Flint water crisis, obviously. And if you can't prove that you don't have lead lines, we truly don't believe that we have lead lines. We do not believe that we have any lead lines in the township. But because we can't definitively prove it, everybody who's in that same boat, which is pretty much every municipality that has a water system or has municipal water across the entire state of Michigan, is going to have expenditure. This is going to be in millions and millions of dollars across the state to prove that there are no lead service lines.
I'm aware of that. I just want to make sure that other communities that, in Genesee County are paying that they have, similar responsibilities financially to this. While all three of you are there, one of the things that has been discussed is backflow inspections as well. That eventually that's going to be required of every home that has an irrigation system, what have you. Is that something you see coming soon, or is it still a ways off?
I haven't heard, I mean, it's been talked about on the residential side. Commercial, we do it. We have HydroCore as our company that performs our inspections and whatnot. Residentially, it's been talked about. We were supposed to be developing that program. It's just the state really doesn't have guideline how to accomplish that with the residential.
That'll probably be something we would contract out as well, though. Okay. All right, you making the motion, Dr. Reardon? Okay. Is there support? Mr. White supports.
Motion by Raridan, supported by White on item 9J. Let's see. Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan. Trustee White.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, item K, the board will consider a motion to approve an increase of $98,156.88 to the renovation budget for Fire Station Number 2. And good evening, Chief Burdette.
Pull that up here real quick. All right. This is not necessarily an increase, but more of an adjustment to reflect properly into the ARPA fund how much money has been spent. I inadvertently excluded the fees for service from Spicer Group in doing the architectural work, because it was just it was a percentage of the construction cost. So what we're asking for this evening is just to have the adjustment reflect into the ARPA for the $98,156.88, which includes $31,000 of items that have not been delivered at this time.
Okay. Any discussion? Mr. Lehman, do you have anything to add?
The reason we want to do this is because previously Chief Burdette appeared before the board, and when he had asked for some increases, said a not to exceed price of $1,535,800 for all of the renovations.
Correct.
This will correct that so that we have a motion behind showing that the ARPA funds were used for this amount. It also helps us define the remaining balance of ARPA funds, which you'll have an agenda item to make sure that we have allocated those funds or obligated those funds before the end of this year. It has an impact on our CVTRS.
Our board members and public probably don't realize, but our finance department watches these meetings the next day to make sure that whatever we voted on is actually what they actually pay. And so I can understand that we need to get this correct. Mr. Kilmer?
So is this an addition? You're talking about ARPA funds, but is it coming out of the township?
It's for ARPA funds only. It's it's, you approved the project with ARPA funds for fire station renovation, and it's a correction of a motion, really, because what Chief Burdette had said in his motion was that with your approval, it would not exceed 1,535,800, and that wasn't true because he hadn't included the Spicer Group, the architects and engineers' service fees in that number. So it is ARPA funds. It's being allocated directly out of your $3.8 million you received in ARPA funds.
So it is?
ARPA money.
ARPA funds, correct.
Okay.
Somebody care to make the motion, or is there further discussion?
I will.
Okay.
Motion by.
Treasurer Kilmer makes the motion.
Motion by Kilmer.
Supported by Mr. Fike.
Supported by Fike. Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you. The board will, item L, the board will consider a motion to dedicate the remaining $1,178,686.69 in ARPA funds to the Fire Station Number 1 construction project.
And again, there is, I believe there's another invoice that went through after this, which would actually reduce that number by $3,000 in that range. But the whole point here is to allocate the remaining ARPA funds to Fire Station Number 1. And there's a reason behind that, and it's with the state of Michigan, and it wouldn't have a huge impact on us. It would be 1% of the city, village, township revenue sharing. 1% of that, if you don't have all of your ARPA funds allocated by December 31st of 2023, they'll withhold 1% of that CVT revenue sharing. And we don't want that to happen. Obviously, it's a few $1,000s, but I'll take the few $1,000s rather than leave it in Lansing. We don't have to obligate our funds until December 31st of 2024 per the federal guidelines. But why would we not allocate them? We know we want to spend the remainder on the fire station, and it just keeps us so that I can point to the motion that the board has moved to obligate all remaining ARPA funds to Fire Station Number 1, which we've already contracted and are moving forward on. That way there's no question that we have fully obligated before the end of 2023.
Okay. I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by Bennett.
Second.
Supported by Kilmer. Very good. Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Raridan.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Okay, so item M, the board will consider a motion to approve Strategic Energy Solutions bid for provision of commissioning services for the new DPW and Fire Department buildings project. Yes,
That's a
Mr. Lehman?
mouthful.
I know, I was thinking that.
The commissioning services, what they're doing is we went out for bids. This is again controlled by Plant Moran, Real Point, your project managers, your owner's representatives for the DPW fire station project. As part of that, these commissioning services will have this company, if you choose Strategic Energy Solutions, they were the low bidder for $44,655. But the systems to be commissioned include all the HVAC systems, temperature controls, lighting controls, and what happens is they actually come in, they make sure that those met all the specifications requested in our bid documents. They make sure that they are installed properly, that there are manuals created behind all of them, that there is training provided for the township to be able to operate all of those systems within the new building. So while the commissioning services is a mouthful for, it's really, this is what it's about. It's the HVAC electrical lighting systems and creating the documentation, proving that it matched our bid documents, and then creating the operator's manual basically and providing the training so that our staff can run the systems when everybody leaves.
Okay.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Supervisor, if it's in order.
Yes.
Why wouldn't the manufacturer provide the manuals and stuff
Manufacturer
of those?
those items?
Yeah.
The manufacturers will provide you with some manuals of what they're doing, but when you think about our two systems and everything that's going in there, no different than if you think about our systems now, and you can certainly ask Mr. Boggs, who has a very working firsthand knowledge, why we use Walter Williams, why we use Johnson Controls for all of these various systems that we have throughout, because those are the guys who continue to come in, make sure those are working, operate the systems, you know, how everything meshes together. We need, what these people do is they come in and they create all of that. Again, number one, we're not experts in this. They are. They come in and make sure that what those folks are providing us in our different systems are what was required by the HVAC or what by the bid documents.
By the specs.
And then they're going to create the manuals for us based upon the what the manufacturers provide, so that we know how to operate and maintain the systems. When they leave, these are the guys who are responsible, guaranteed that they're going to have this, they're going to provide it to us as staff, so that we know how to actually utilize all of the systems, all these various systems, all tied together from different manufacturers into one manual for us to operate.
Sounds like a scam.
Mr. Fike?
When are we going to break ground on this facility?
June of 2024.
So one of the things that we hired, it was called Plant Moran Cressa, right?
No, it's Plant Moran Real Point.
So, you know, we hired the professionals to help guide us through this process. One of the major issues we've had with this building is HVAC, right? I mean, with exhaust coming into the building, and, you know, one of the issues we've had with the fire department is even, you know, making sure that, you know, we separate the air, you know, the turnout gear from the firefighters' living quarters. So it's a critical issue that we get it right the first time. You know, the systems are advancing quickly because, you know, adjusting those things remotely. I was just reading something from Consumers Energy where businesses, they're trying to get them, you know, most of these have computers now that operate their whole system, and they're able to, you know, remotely do it from their phone. But it's quite sophisticated. It isn't just putting a furnace on the building and having a thermostat to adjust it. So if our experts are recommending it, I'm trusting them, but it is a critical part of what we're doing here.
They actually work through the design development phase, through the construction phase, and through the warranty phase. I mean, it's not, I know you said you think it's a scam. If you read through the bid documents to really get an understanding of everything that's involved in what this company has to deliver for us as the owner, I think you will think differently once you read through everything that they're completely responsible for on that main delivery, and the guarantee that they have to provide us, including problem solving and resolving any non-conformance issues throughout this process. They're basically our guarantee that all of these things are going to be installed correctly, and like I said, from design development phase that we're in now, all the way through the construction phase, and then all the way through the warranty phase. If there's ever any issues, like we have with the police building ongoing, because the temperature battles out, we had all kinds of humidity issues, hiring a company like this that makes them responsible for working through there. I can't even begin to tell you how much the township spent battling some of the issues in the police department building for these exact same systems. A hell of a lot more than what we're asking you to hear, I can guarantee you that.
I can tell you from, on the commercial side of things, I'm aware of some very nice facilities, not necessarily in Grand Blanc Township, but in Genesee County, that I'm aware of situations where a brand-new building is having issues to the point where they tried to file insurance claim. It's not an insurance issue, it's actually issue with the HVAC system and condensation and that sort of thing, causing a lot of internal damage to drywall and what have you. So it's something we want to deal with properly, because it can result in a lot of other issues. So with that, anybody have anything to add?
Is a motion in order, Mr. Supervisor?
It is.
And I will make that motion.
Okay, I'll support it.
And supported by Bennett, okay? On item 9M, Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Raritan.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Item N, the board will consider Resolution 2530 for the installation of streetlights on Dort Highway from Grand Blanc Road to Hill Road, and approval for the supervisor to approve all related contracts. Now, why is this one supervisor instead of superintendent?
They asked me who should be, and I said, that sounds like a supervisor thing to me.
You're dealing with
Trying to
Now,
give
had
me,
they asked you, I think it would have gone the other way.
you trying to give me credit for this or blame?
I'll let you know after.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good thing, so I'll be glad to put my name on it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes,
Do we have a timetable for placement of these lights?
we're going to get that report right now.
Marvelous.
Yes, so this before you is the resolution to pretty much get the ball rolling, Clerk Robertson, on getting this light program on Dort Highway that is much needed. It's a total of 37 lights from all the way up to Hill Road, all the way to Grand Blanc Road, and using a few existing lights and upgrading them.
Great.
So, pretty much, the plan was in the packet.
Yep.
Locations of where we're
Right.
gonna have to.
And actually, we didn't pick the locations. Consumers Energy did a study and looked at where all the current lights are, where we need lights. You know, this is a pretty big project because there's not existing poles where a lot of these lights need to be placed, and there's not electricity running there necessarily either. Just because we have power lines going down the road doesn't mean they're accessible for street lights. So it's going to be a major undertaking with that many lights, and I mean, you got a lot of property there to cover. We're looking at something similar down the road on Saginaw Street as well. But both streets, we've gotten complaints over the years, and I know for a fact that it's so dark along there to pull in or turn into subdivisions, and there's been people complaining of potential accidents and that they're fearful to even turn left into national estates off Dort because of it. So I'm in full support of this.
Absolutely.
I think they told us when we met with them that they would look at hopefully the first quarter of 24. So, hopefully, I mean, and right now at this time of year, it's dark for, quite a few hours a day. So it'd be helpful to have it. Any questions, concerns, Mr. Kilmer?
I'd like to add, this is on Saginaw Street in that area, but I know somebody that stumbled out of the bar there, got hit and died.
Wow.
And it's a very, very dark area. I mean, it's.
So we're working on multiple projects, whether it's sidewalk or lighting, to try and improve this area, in the north part. So this will just be one piece that we're trying to accomplish, but I'm pleased that we're able to move forward on this. Okay, I'll make the motion.
Motion by Bennett,
Second?
supported by Kilmer. On item 9N, Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Raritan.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Future agenda items. We have anything scheduled, Mr. Limita, for our next meeting?
Oh, the overview of the strategic plan. Again, we usually do it twice a year. We look at it at the end. We're scheduling a work session for January if you guys want to review again.
Okay. Mr. Fike?
Just got a question from a neighbor.
Sure.
For Mr. Kilmer. She got her tax bill, and it says at the bottom, special assessment. And she didn't know what that was for.
Says what now?
Special assessment.
She must be part of the special assessment.
He must have had some assessment, whether it could be anything from lighting to paving to whatever.
Okay.
I mean,
She thought maybe it was for garbage,
for what?
Oh, no.
for refuse, you know.
We don't we don't assess for trash.
We don't have a special assessment for trash.
What is it, about $130 a year or something like that?
Okay.
About $130. something.
130,
I'm saying we don't have a separate special assessment.
67?
Sure we do.
We do. Without knowing more information as where the person is, we can't possibly answer the question.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see that under solid waste on your tax bill, not special assessment says.
One of the things that I've thought might be helpful in that regard, Mr. Fike, is to actually, I know we have the pie chart that shows where your taxes go, but when you receive that tax bill and you see that whole list of items, you don't know from that list, unless it says Grand Blanc, you don't know where that money's going, and it might be helpful for us to come up with a sample, have that tax bill and put it online, but delineate which things are going to the county and which things are coming to us, because, you can have Parks and Rec. Well, that looks like, hey, Grand Blanc Township's getting Parks and Rec. No, that's county, and the abbreviations are so short that you really can't, So I think maybe we do something to help our residents understand where that money is going to that shows up in your tax bill, because I'm not sure those abbreviations are clear to everybody on where that goes.
I'll have her call you.
Okay, good. Okay, so future agenda items, we're going to cover that on that. And I know one of the things we talked about was our solicitation policy too. I don't know where we're at on that, but we want to have that sometime coming up. Moving on to board reports. Let's see here. Anything to report on, Dr. Reardon, Mr. Kilmer?
No, I've been trying to get your attention here. If you can get me that person's name and address, I can find out for you. Glad to.
Okay. Clerk Robertson, anything?
No, I have nothing to report, Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Fike?
Nope.
Thing, Mr. White? Okay, just make it real brief, because I know we've been here for a little while. Glad we started our meetings at 6 now. But anyways, we had talked about having a roads, streets and roads and transportation task force, and about that time we received the resignation of our, hopefully it wasn't because of this, resignation of our DPW director, so we held off, and actually the director for the Genesee County Road Commission also retired, so to try and put together this task force after, with both them absent, I think would have been tough. So I've spoken with our DPW director, our new director, and I think we want to get this moving in January. So I'm going to be asking some people to serve on this task force from around the community. We've had a number of people volunteer, and we'll be having some staff and probably a board member or two. So with that, Mr. Laddie?
Nothing to add.
Oh, I got one other thing too, that the 911 consortium is actually looking at possibly building a facility, a new facility in Genesee County. They're looking for 9 to 10 acres where they can locate this. They were originally looking for any municipality that had property to sell. I said, I don't think we have any property that we own that we want to sell, but we have plenty of property in the township that individuals would be willing to sell. So maybe asking to have a meeting maybe with them, that maybe somebody from our staff can assist them in looking at what properties might be advantageous to use for that. Mr. Limita?
Just want to say that your next meeting, because of the holidays coming up, and I don't think we had it on the schedule, I think you need to make a motion to move it, or is it on the schedule?
I've got it right here. We want to change our meeting time from on the 22nd right now. That's a Friday, right?
Yep.
December 22nd, we want to move it till noon. We need to have, I mean, it's going to pretty much be to pay the bills. We aren't going to, although we could slip a few things in there that are controversial to pass, but I think we're just going to cover bills. But on the 22nd, we're looking at noon.
That's what we have here.
Would that work?
Got to remember.
Well, that's what we want to move it to. We don't, it's not on our schedule, so we need to approve that change, correct?
Correct.
I'll make the motion that we change our meeting on Friday, December 22, our next meeting to Friday, December 22nd at 12 o'clock noon. Is there a second? Mr. Fike?
I just have a question.
Sure.
That's not the for me, that's our observed Christmas Eve. Is that the townships that same day?
No,
Or
we're.
Are you the Monday, Tuesday?
Yeah. In fact, that's the other thing, is that the following week, the township office will actually only be open on Thursday, the 28th, is the only day that the office will be open.
Right.
Thank you.
I'm sure lots of people will be here working despite it being closed, but. Okay. Anything else? We have a support for that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so our next meeting will be Friday, December 22nd at noon. Somebody care to make the motion to adjourn? Mr. White makes that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Fike supported it.
Okay, Fike. We are adjourned at 8:51.